Why are we getting the echo? Testing, testing. Yeah, that's what it was. On it. Shut my mouth. Okay. I think we're tracking.
Yeah, it slowed down a little bit in December, but we're kind of ramping back up. Yeah, I mean, it's just hard, you know. January, got two basically Mondays off.
Sun was out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely makes my job easier when I do.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to 100 degrees plus, then their systems take turns. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you get so reliant, same thing like your phone, every so often your fingers wet, the phone screen doesn't want to pick it up. Okay, but what's my phone code? As long as I know the backup password, then it's not a problem. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Saying in the army about backups. 2 is 1 and 1 is none.
Yep.
Guys, how are y'all?
Got you, boss.
Thank you, sir.
Man, it's cold outside. Thankful for heat.
We're recording, we're ready to go. As soon as we get a chair.
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
got an email from Jeff Lang right before me. He said, he's going to be either online or not. I don't know if we're going to have an applicant available for Mike. Unless Linda shows up, she hasn't logged in yet.
I would suspect that she'll be on. Okay.
Yeah.
Just beat my text.
Workshop narrative. Here's that.
That's right. So you think about it.
These right here.
But we've got them scanned.
Okay.
Scanned them, but your copy's not scanned. Well, copy got all these not scanned.
Oh.
They're just coming to that.
Gotcha.
I've scanned the original.
Okay. That's fine.
That's okay.
I don't think I need this. Well, it'll,
It's a second step.
yeah, this is fine. Thank you, Kathy. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so Vic, she was made.
I see that JD's gone, but Judy.
Judy Kay.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
I'll just go off memory. All right, sorry for the delay, everybody. I will now call to order the January 16, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission Workshop Meeting at 5:05 PM. At this time, we will turn it over to our Planning Director, Mr. Brian Chandler.
Thank you. I guess before that, if there are any public comments, anybody wants to comment on anything on the agenda, you'll also have another opportunity during the regular meeting. Okay. Hearing none. Regular meeting certainly is available as well. And so let me go over our agenda for today and open it up for questions, just anything prior to the public hearing for the two zoning cases that we have, which starting with number 5, which is FY 24-3-ZC. This is a returning zoning case that you all heard on Kegley Road. And so the applicant took input from that meeting and also other discussions and has revised their application to present that again tonight. And of course, that included renoticing it. So I'm sure there are some folks in the audience that received notices for both of them. Mr. Jason Deckman is our case manager for that. And I understand that one of the applicants is not going to be with us, is ill. I'm not sure if an additional member of the applicant team will join us, but we assume so. Okay. And also from that case, we have a number of neighbor responses that you all have before you. Most of them in disagreement, but a few in agreement. And just want to make sure that you all received those responses, which will also be part of, for those that are disapproving, those neighbors within the 200-foot radius that disapprove, that'll also be part of the calculation to see if if the overall opposition is equal to or exceeds 20% of the area within that 200-foot buffer. And so that, if we don't have those updated calculations by our mapping department, we certainly would by council. And because that's necessary, because if it does exceed a 20% opposition calculation, then of course it requires a supermajority vote by council if they were to approve it. So 4/5 instead of just a standard 3/5 majority vote.
So just to clarify, what we received in the email this afternoon hasn't been updated as part of the presentation we're going to receive. So the 20%, we won't be able to understand that tonight because this hasn't been updated.
That is correct.
Okay.
I got some notices around before and at lunch today, so I've updated the presentation.
Yeah.
Did get two more right before this meeting. So no, I don't have the calculation, but I've had it as up to date as it could be.
We're only off by 2 then.
Yeah, and the two that responded, one was agreement and one was disagreement. But note that the one that was disagreement had previously responded in disagreement, so he's already counted.
So
Yeah, this is
it's not
moving
my first
quickly.
rodeo, but I guess in my mind, if one's in agreement and the other one's already been counted,
Then we
Yeah,
should.
we
have an
should, we
updated
should have
calculation.
to, okay, just,
Yeah,
okay.
no,
What is the
and
current calculation? Do we know?
I haven't got it back from
Okay,
GIS yet.
Got it. So
Okay.
we're still,
The
that's.
count
part.
is in, we just don't have the formal, got it,
Of the
okay, there we
percentage of
go.
the
We got
area,
there.
correct.
We gotta have our mapping folks
Got it,
officially calculated.
understood, thank you.
Okay. All right, so any other questions just about the updated notices or anything else for that matter that you want to discuss now? Otherwise, we'll certainly have a full discussion after the presentation. Great question. I know Jason has reached out to our Public Works project manager, the engineer for that project. And Sharon,
Yep.
I believe she said that the earliest that it would start is April of this year, with a completion by the following summer,
July of 25.
July of 25. That's the earliest. So it's likely within months of that start date.
So we're, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The phase 1 and 2, did they go over the estimated time?
They did.
Over 3 years, so,
They did.
yeah, I think it would be safe to assume probably won't be July.
I'm not a gambling man.
Yeah.
I'm taking the odds on that one though, if I am.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and I think there may have been utility relocations that
Yep.
slowed down those first two phases that
they're not expecting in 3 and
may,
4.
perhaps, I
Yeah.
don't know that,
That was gonna be my question. So we're saying April to July. So we're saying it the same.
that's best case scenario.
Yeah, that's best case scenario. Most likely not the case. So when they provide us best case scenarios, do they also provide us that worst case scenario as well? No.
They do not.
I mean, that would be nice. for
Just
sure.
some additional context on this one. It was originally slated to go on for bid and have the contract awarded this month.
Hmm.
There was an easement that they hadn't got in place yet, so they couldn't move forward. The email that came in said, we got the easement, we're getting that document signed and recorded today.
Yeah.
So as of today, cross your fingers, everything went to plan and they'll be able to get that contract awarded. And then just, there's time for the contract to come in place and get their notice to proceed and then actually start turning dirt. So that was,
All easements, public works, the whole 9 yards? All easements?
I'm
sir?
just saying for all the
Oh.
construction projects, once
Got
the
it, okay.
contract is awarded, there's a matter of time for,
Yeah.
get them up to speed and get them going. So that was Sharon's response today, was that earliest start date's probably April.
But even the start date's not set in stone.
Correct.
Because of, yeah. Okay.
Because we were waiting on that easement to get worked out.
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot more conversation in the regular
Okay.
meeting for sure.
Sounds good.
Got a question I want to announce from our last.
Uh,
You said that there were so many that disagreed with.
Yes, sir.
You have a number on
We do, and in fact, that'll be part of the regular, the public hearing presentation that Mr. Deckman will give.
Yeah.
Great question. I don't know off the top of my head, but he has it. Thank you. All right, and next item, number 6. At East FM 93, addressed as 7002 and 7246 Old Highway 95. And you all will recall that this was a recent voluntary annexation. And this also includes, in addition to a mixed use, primarily single family residential neighborhood, also includes TISD property for a future school site. And I know the applicant is here and actually, so Scott, there was one condition related to buffering and screening because this is a planned development. So we've been working closely with the applicant on the conditions. There was one related to buffering and screening that I think we're going to propose to recommend tweaking because there's a Encore easement that also provides adequate buffering and screening. And so we want to make sure that that's accounted for. So anyway, Mark will address that during the presentation.
This
So
is a school that's already under construction right now, correct?
this one is not.
Or this is okay.
This is a future. So
Nice.
further south and further east.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. And let's see, I guess that's anything else on those 2 agenda items. Scott, did you want to say something?
If there were any questions, my daughter has a 6 p.m. basketball game.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to- that, workshop to see if they- So I think we addressed the multifamily with, got a letter from Dr. Ott.
Mhm.
I know that's been, something that's been on the radar in the past.
Yep.
We wanted to make sure he don't do it. That we work through the TV commission.
Yes, and
We plan to own everything and, we want it all to work together. Also, we just want to make sure we don't get caught 10 years down the road when, different staff or people that interpret things differently. Want to try to make sure we get it spelled out as best we can.
yes, thank you, Scott. And so while we've got that on the screen, the 250-foot wide Encore transmission easement, that certainly provides a nice buffer between proposed multifamily and single family. And so that's part of the discussion that Mr. Baker will present. We got the applicant's input on that. We're in agreement.
God, I will just tell you, thank you for getting the letter from Dr. Ott. I know I'm probably one of the few that continually bring up the ISDs based on the fact we had them come in, give us their spiel. So taking that extra step is greatly appreciated.
All right. And so those are the 2 items. I wanted to also give you an update because one of the other items that are in the packet, related to the director's report, I let you all know that there is an upcoming annexation that should be scheduled soon for city council. And of course, with our new process, we bring it to you all in a workshop just to inform you. And that one is not quite ready. This is on Dairy Road. So I don't have any slides on that yet because we don't have the signed development or exception to the development agreement that's required. And therefore the timing has not been set for when it goes to council. So when it is set, I will bring that to you all. Just want to give you a quick update. All right. So with that, just a couple, let me go through the presentation. Jason, if you don't mind pulling that up. And while he's pulling that up, also I wanted to introduce, we have our new planner, Shelby Smith. Shelby, raise your hand there. So she has started today, first day, and we're really excited to have Shelby. She brings a wealth of grant and governmental experience, and just her communication skills are fantastic. And so this is her first foray directly into planning, but she has lots of great transferable experience. And for those of the Aggies on the panel here, she's another Aggie. So even though I'm a Longhorn, I seem to hire only Aggies. So for what it's worth, we got a good group of Aggies here. All right. So a couple items that I wanted to address. First one is a discussion related to a potential consent agenda for minor plats, actually not minor plats, because those are approved administratively. But if there is a minor plat, just a few lots that otherwise meet all the minor plat criteria, except for maybe right-of-way dedication is required. That's just an example of perhaps we can replicate the process for city council, having a consent agenda that really items that don't typically require a ton of discussion can be approved as a group. And if there are any questions, they can be pulled. So that's really the first item we want to talk about. And the second one is just an update on the boards and commissions attendance policy. So we will start with consent. And so something that we as staff, so planning staff, but also with the help of Kyle, we certainly wouldn't bring this discussion to you all without having Kyle's legal expertise to say, yes, you can do that. So Kyle has said, yes, there can be a consent agenda similar to the way city council does it. But so we would propose not to change anything related to a preliminary plat. And so when a preliminary plat comes to you all, which are typically multi-phase projects, mixed use projects, the larger projects, those would still remain on the regular agenda and have a full presentation for them. The same for plats requiring a UDC exception, even if it's related to park fees, which planning and zoning can approve that exception if it's just related to fees themselves. But we would suggest that anything requiring exception still gets a full presentation. Phased plats that have significant changes from what was approved at the preliminary plat, those we would propose just to do business as normal with them, full presentation. So what are we talking about in terms of a potential consent agenda? Say minor plats, and I say minor, technically it's no longer a minor plat if it comes to planning and zoning, because a minor plat is approved administratively, but a minor plat that has that otherwise would be a minor plat if not for, say, right-of-way dedication. So let's say access comes from a 40-foot roadway and our minimum is 50. The applicant would be required to dedicate half of that balance, so 5 feet. Well, that is considered an increase in or a extension of public facilities. And by Texas local government code, it can no longer be administrative. So it comes to you all. So that's an example of one where let's have a discussion about it. One, are you all comfortable with at least pursuing a potential consent agenda? And let's have that discussion. And if so, what items could be on that consent agenda? And so this is one of those that we would take a look at. Minor plats with the infrastructure increase, similar to right-of-way dedication. I mean, that is something that's no longer a minor plat, but if say public utility, a public water or sewer line need to be extended, that can no longer be approved administratively, has to come to P&Z. Or final plats that have no significant changes from the approved preliminary plat. So a final plat comes in for a single phase, it matches everything that was approved at the preliminary plat stage. that's another potential, hey, put it on consent agenda and it can be potentially pulled from that consent agenda. But if there are no issues, then they could be approved as a group. And so looking at those bullets, once again, you all can pull it for any reason. If you have any questions, we would also attempt to evaluate it in terms of, okay, does this merit a public discussion, even though maybe it meets those minor plat criteria? Maybe there's another public reason to have that discussion. Perhaps then we don't put it on consent. We have that discussion. But then again, if you all saw something that you wanted to have a public discussion on, you could pull it. So it would be a conversation. We wouldn't change anything related to staff reports and all the background in the packet and what also is posted on the web, full staff report, full attachments. So this is merely just a proposal to look at the overall efficiency and just see if this is something that you all would entertain as a discussion point. And then that last bullet, once again, if staff anticipated a need to have a public discussion, we wouldn't put it on the consent agenda. But if we did, and y'all could easily pull it. So that's, we're just beginning the conversation today. Let us know and let's have a discussion or say, bring additional information back. We once again just worked with Kyle to say, yeah, that is something that we can do by our local codes and by the statutory requirements for subdivision plats.
I'm a visual, Brian, so I guess in my mind, I would love to see some cases that we reviewed kind of plug in some of these.
Sure.
So if you go to each slide and say, okay, I apologize, I hit the mic. The first one, hey, this is what we'll continue to see, and give us some examples. That would be beneficial on my side.
Okay.
But from a streamlining process, I'm 100% behind streamlining the process and going this path, as long as we're still able to get the data.
Right.
And I think you will hear this from me often. I don't want it to turn into a rubber stamp, but in my mind, if we still allow the citizens to have input, we still have all the quantifiable data behind the decision. I think this is the right decision for sure. In
Okay.
my mind,
Sure.
with the added context.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. We can bring it back at the next P&Z workshop with specific examples, probably, well, recent examples that you all have seen that would have been in one category or another. Anything else? And so just think about it. We'll be back and continue the conversation at the next workshop. I guess it depends on the level of changes proposed, or if it's hey, we're ready to go, then we'd work with Kyle and his recommendations of, this is probably something that ought to be discussed with council as well. But
That's going to be my next question. Is there an approval process so that it gets all the checks through the
Yeah.
process? Okay.
So it's it doesn't require council approval. It'd just be more of a
Review and update.
Yeah. Is this the direction that they would like to see, since you all are council appointed board members? All right. Kyle, anything else that I missed on that one? Okay. Very good. And very quickly, so I know we're short on time, but just wanted to remind everybody, because we've got new members since the last time we had discussion about the 2020 council updates on boards and commissions attendance. Commissioner Morales, you were on council at that time, and so either way, as a new P&Z member, you were familiar with this. And so it's just a reminder, mainly it's this slide in terms of attendance. Because we have also received inquiries about attendance because there's been some fluctuation of who is here when. So one, I wanted to let you all know that I did receive some questions from council and said that I would have that discussion and remind you all in terms of the attendance policy. And so just remember that you can have excused absences related to family illness, death in the family, testifying before the legislation, attending a seminar related to your duties on board and commission, or any related emergencies or other matters that the chair finds qualifying. So the key is if it's in that list, just let us know. We can excuse it. If it's one in that other category, you need to check with the chair, Derek, ahead of time to get excused, because if you don't get your absences excused and over a 12-month period, you're absent more than half the time, then that essentially rotates you off of P&Z. So that's a reminder. And then also for 3 consecutive unexcused absences. So just want to give you all a reminder of that. And of course it gets tracked. And you're all very busy and this is a volunteer position, but just wanted to remind you. And then also in terms of video, that this doesn't really apply, that you guys remember this, that, hey, if you're going to participate via Zoom, then that requires chair approval, but we still have to have the in-person quorum of 5. So anyway, thank you all. And that is all I have.
Brian?
I was going to say just real quick before we finish this, since we have so many people in the audience, those that want to speak need to sign up, and kind of, do we want to give that refresher of kind of how the process works since we have so many guests tonight?
Sure. Great point. And so for you all that want to speak, if you haven't signed up, there is a sign-in sheet, and Kathy can show you where that is. And then just your name will get called. And so you'll have an opportunity to speak specifically for one of those 2 zoning cases. There's also a public comment section that you'll have an opportunity to speak on that matter or any other matter. So there are multiple opportunities to speak up. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
At this time, I will ask for a volunteer for the invocation. Commissioner Weaver and a volunteer for the pledge. Commissioner Carney. All right, we will now hear from Mrs. Gover regarding affidavits.
Commissioners, for the record, only one affidavit is received for this meeting from Commissioner Jean for item number 5, FY 24-3.
Yes. With no further business for the workshop, we will conclude the meeting at 5:31 p.m. Does anybody need a break before we move to the regular meeting?
We have a sign here and a sign sheet also.
Perfect. Janet, grab those. All right, it is still 5:31 and we will call to order the January 16, 2024 Planning and Zoning regular meeting. Mrs. Gover, when you have a moment to get back to the podium, maybe have the roll, please.
Good evening and welcome to the January 16th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Open Session Meeting. Commissioners, please stay present if in attendance this evening. Commissioner Morales.
Present.
Commissioner Walker.
Present.
Commissioner Jurassic.
Present.
Commissioner Krause. Let the record show Commissioner Krause is not present. Commissioner Weaver.
Present.
Commissioner Jeans,
Present.
Commissioner Carney,
Present.
Vice Chair McBride. Let the record show that Vice Chair McBride is not present. Chair Marshall.
Present.
For the record, a quorum is present with 7 commissioners attending in person this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. At this time, I'll ask everyone to stand with me. Commissioner Weaver will give the invocation, followed by Commissioner Carney with the pledge.
All right, please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this amazing land that we call home. Thank you for this city. Thank you for our leadership. I pray tonight, Lord, that you'll be with us, lead us and guide us. Let everything we do be to your honor and your glory. And it's in your Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Now we will confirm the meeting agenda items. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments regarding the agenda?
Do we want to flip 6 and 5 around since Commissioner Jeans has to abstain from 5?
I think that's a good idea, and I think the applicant for item number 6 is trying to leave here in the next few minutes to get to his daughter's basketball game.
And wanted to make it about him. I was making it about, no, I'm just kidding.
Yes. I believe. We can do that. Okay, with that change, Kyle, can I still call as approved by general consent? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Are there any other questions, commissioners, or comments on the agendas? Perfect. With the change, we will approve that by general consent. And this time we'll call for public comments. If anybody would like to make any public comments, please come to the podium. Please state your name and city of residence for the record, and please limit comments no longer than 3 minutes. No, I know, man, this is just general comments.
Thank you for starting early. I'm John Asbury, 4201 Dove Lane here in Temple. I have no conflict of interest. I have not represented anybody except myself, and I get no profit from this. I'm here tonight on FY 2411 to see the 140 acre before you at this present time. It's supposed to have up to 350 new roofs in this new addition in Southeast Temple. There's a 20 acre school district, if you want to put that up, also on the board at this present time. When I went through this item today, I noticed that there was a motion to pay the city $225 per roof, what that's called, for city parks instead of having a city park here. With about 350 roofs, that's 1,000 to 1,500 people that are probably going to be living in this area. And there's no major parks in that area at this present time. My suggestion is they take the money that you're going to be assessing for instead of using for a park and combine with the school district over here and have an enhanced playground area in that area that could function both as a park and a school ground play area. The school is not there on weekends. It's not there on nights. It's not there on holidays at this point. So and most of the school has open areas for swings and stuff like this. So this would give these 1,000 or so people an area for a park as well as the same time for the school at this present time. And would the school do this? Well, the rumor is we gave the school $10 million to build a building downtown. They owe us something back at this present time, even though it came through the reinvestment zone. It was still our tax money at this present time. So we could get two things at one time: a new school, a good playground in a neighborhood park. I thank you for your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And this just reiterating, this public comment section is just for general comments. If you have commentary for a specific item, there will be a public hearing where you can make those comments for that specific item at that time as well. Seeing no more, we will close. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm lost you. Apologize.
I'm Debbie Huey. My husband and I, Sam Huey, live at 6212 Jupiter and have for 32 years. We're here really, or I'm here really. My husband had a medical procedure on the item 5. We own 10 acres adjoining where Jupiter's going to be proposed as a emergency access easement only. In all reality, Jupiter can't hold any more traffic than what we have out there now. So I'll speak during the public hearing, but we fought this battle before. Jupiter's just not built to hold the traffic that this proposal is setting out, even if it's used as an emergency access easement only using first responders. If there's ever a first responder in our area, or even the utility department, you can't, there's not enough room on that road. So I'll leave the rest of it for.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will close the public comments. We'll move to consent items. On the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from the planning and zoning work session and regular meeting of January 16, 2023. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments regarding consent items? Seeing none, we will approve those by general consent, and we will actually move on to item number 6. Oh, it's the 16th. So if it need, do I need to reread that into it, Kyle, for a reconsent?
Yeah, if you would, the agenda.
Okay. Sorry, guys. On the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from the planning and zoning work session and regular meeting of January 2nd, 2023. Commissioners, are there any questions or comments regarding the minutes from January 2nd? Seeing none, those are approved by general consent, and we will move to item number 6, FY-24-11-CC. Hold a public hearing to discuss and recommend action on a rezoning request from agricultural to planned development, single-family 3 dwelling with up to a maximum of 20% for general retail uses, up to a maximum of 20% for multifamily 2 uses, and up to a maximum of 10% for townhouse uses on 145.04 acres located generally south of 93 Spur, west of Old Highway 95, approximately 1,600 feet south of its intersection with East FM 93, addressed as 7002 and 7246 Old Highway 95. This case will be presented by Principal Planner, Mr. Mark Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. And so this plan development is actually scheduled for City Council on February 1st and a second reading by City Council on February 15th after tonight. And so just a little bit of background, kind of showing you, we've already kind of jumped into where the property is located. It's bordered by FM 93, Spur 95, and Old Highway 95. And as Brian had mentioned during the workshop, this property was annexed in recently, 167 acres, which includes the 20 acres that is TISD property. That property is not being considered tonight. It will remain the ag zoning that it received when it was annexed in. So what is before you tonight is 145 acres. This is a mixed-use plan development with a base zoning of SF3. It will include 20% of general retail, up to 20% of general retail, multifamily 2, and up to 10% of townhome, which would be developed ultimately to up to 350 rooftops. So the conceptual layout for the plan, this would be attached to the plan development ordinance, should this be approved, shows the conceptual street layout. It also shows the 250-foot wide Encore easement that's on the property, which separates the multifamily 2 and the general retail from the single family and townhome area. This will be referred back to on condition 13, talking about buffering and screening, and I'll get to that when we get to the conditions. But just wanted to point out that this is serving as a significant buffer and screen from the GR and the multifamily too from the single family. So just some images of the property. This is looking from FM 95 as well as, or FM 93 rather, as well as Old Highway 95. And from Spur 95 is the electric easement. Again, in all cases, the property is existing. It's undeveloped, but is being used for agricultural purposes. Go to the east, again, is both east and to the south are existing agricultural uses. There are also scattered single-family residential uses. Those properties are all within the ETJ and not within the city limits. To the west, along FM 93, is the railroad crossing, as well as existing single-family residential uses, which are the within the Alta Vista subdivision, and that's under a plan development SF2. And to the north, again, is existing agricultural uses. These properties are also within the ETJ, both across from 93 and Spur 95. So as a plan development, this is a flexible overlay zoning district. It includes a development plan. The development plan would be the conceptual layout that I provided earlier, just a couple slides back, and that is the binding site plan. Exhibit A would be attached and also includes the townhome dimensional standards, which are included in the conditions specifically, as well as spelled out on that conceptual site plan. As a plan development, it's also subject to UDC section 3.4.5, which sets up the 10 criteria, which is a separate table, and that was included in your staff report. So just additional background that would apply to this. A subdivision plat will be required. It will be required to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The parkland fees, improvements, these are going to be identified during the review of the plat in terms of the location of the park. If there is any park that is being proposed by the developer, at this time, staff has not seen any of that. And so this is just the first stage, which is the zoning that's being put into place. The subdivision plat would address the park fees and any type of park exceptions, such as for the multifamily development. That includes that would be in the form of an exception that would ultimately go to city council if it's requested by the developer. As I mentioned earlier, there is a 250-foot electric easement that crosses this property, and this does provide a significant buffer between the MF2, the GR, from the residential portion of the development. The easement also lends itself to a trail opportunity. There's preliminary discussion with the developer and Encore to see if that is feasible. It'll be addressed in more detail during the plat process. On January 2nd, the development project was before the Development Review Committee. And what was identified, the primary outcome of that meeting was that it was identified that the developer will require flexibility with the final alignment of those roadways, especially with TxDOT along FM 93. And so there is a condition that would allow administrative approval for the flexibility and adjustments to that final layout. I will defer to the engineer who is also in the meeting, but staff has gathered that layout is pretty well firmed up, but they need that adjustment just in case TxDOT requires adjustments to that affect that layout or internal layouts for lots, which they don't finalize until they get to the plat stage. DRC authority to defer the multifamily and GR site plan portions to the P&Z Commission and City Council, as opposed to having each and every site plan for the multifamily, which is typically a format that we've done in the past, and to speed up and help the process, that DRC would be able to have the authority if it's found necessary to defer individually those site plans. And that is also proposed as a condition of approval. Sidewalk connectivity within the multifamily portion, the school property, especially along the Collector Street, that is also included as a condition of approval. As we discussed during the workshop, this property is within the Temple ISD. TISD is supportive, and a letter from the district, specifically from Dr. Ott, was provided in support of the project. It is a mixed use, which is supported by the district. And that letter was dated January 4th. So in terms of the zoning map, the proposed PDSF3, this will be a mixture. The base SF3 with the mixture of the MF2 as well as the GR. It would restrict the MF, GR, and townhome developments to percentages within the overall development. So it's not flat out all of those. And again, the site plan does define where the multifamily and the GR, the townhome sections would be interspersed with the single family. Primarily on the layout, they're going to be recognized by alleyway that would be developed within that. And so the zoning does provide for a variety of residential and non-residential, the service supporting opportunities within the overall project. Within the future development plan, it's residential neighborhood services. This is intended primarily for single-family developed, single-family attached and detached homes. It is to have a mixture of residential and non-residential neighborhood serving, which the GR would support. And it does include the support for townhomes, and the multifamily would be supported through the PD process. So both water and sewer will be available to the project. The wastewater, again, extension of that, which is approximately 1,500 feet to the west within the Alta Vista subdivision, would be addressed during the plat process. And so with the thoroughfare plan and trails, we know that there are traffic impacts. That was addressed with the Leon Preserve subdivision and formerly Stomping Grounds. It's currently unplatted, but it has gone through annexation as well as the rezoning to plan development that the Planning Commission and City Council saw within the last year. We know there was a TIA, traffic impact analysis, that was done for the development, and is anticipated that the TIA would be updated to accommodate this project. Additional sidewalk and trails opportunities do exist within this. 6-foot sidewalk along both sides of the collector, which is shown by the yellow arrow, and a 6-foot sidewalk along the multifamily frontage, which would be primarily in this area in the south, or the northwest corner, fronting along FM 93, as well as the general retail. And then the 6-foot sidewalk along the TISD frontage that would be on Spur 93. Again, we would address those with plat notes and confirmed with the plat process. And so a lot of tables. The main kind of takeaway on this is a table showing the base zoning district as well as the general retail, the single family. We would expect that in the general retail, you can have the single family residential. So if market conditions do not accommodate, the developer has the flexibility to go back to single family uses. But the general retail would be there to catch general retail opportunity, which we would anticipate would be most retail and service uses. Does include restaurants, perhaps even a hotel motel if conditions are accommodating to that. The SF3 is going to be single family detached homes, and the townhome certainly would catch single family as well as townhome uses, and the multifamily would capture also the single family attached, detached, duplex, and apartments. Again, we do not have a site plan. The multifamily is there as an opportunity, and the DRC process would be able to capture and have that flexibility to require the site plan to come back to P&Z if found necessary. And just a table showing the dimensional standards. The main takeaway from this is that within the MF2, the maximum dwelling unit per acre is 20 dwelling units per acre. That isn't within the MF2. The townhome, and I've called out in green the standards that are being requested under the PD, which would be the 2,000 square foot lot size, the 20-foot minimum lot width, and the 5-foot and 0 setback under the PD. And those were on the site plan, or show on the site plan, and again would be reflected not only in the conditions but shown on the site plan that would be attached with the zoning ordinance. So As part of the rezoning process, notification of property owners within 200 feet, one notice was sent out to a property within the city, 14 courtesy notices within the ETJ. Since the courtesy notices are not within city limits, it's a courtesy that we notify them of the meeting and given the schedule for them. To date, no returned notice or courtesy notice has been returned. I have had a couple phone calls from some of the property owners within the ETJ inquiring about the nature of the development, but nothing that they were concerned about or that there was opposition to. So the criteria that staff uses to and evaluate a plan development, the 10 criteria, the future land use plan, compatibility with surrounding uses and zoning, public facility availability, and thoroughfare plan, those were all compliant. So staff recommends approval of the rezoning request with subject to following 15 conditions. And I'm not going to read all of these. I'll just kind of paraphrase. And also within your staff report was the full wording. This is kind of a condensed version of those, but it's essentially substantial compliance to the site development plan, the base zoning of SF3 with the percentage breakdown for the general retail, the multifamily, as well as the townhome, and the specific standards for the townhome that were called out. The DRC review for non-residential development and the multifamily development with the discretion to require a public site plan review if it was found necessary. A minimum 10% landscaping within the GR, the multifamily, and the townhome portion. Subdivision plat with a 65 to 75 foot wide community collector with the sidewalks and the minimum 6 foot sidewalks along the TISP property, as well as fronting along the multifamily portion. Administrative approval of the realignment of the collector street and the roadway network and the connectivity also, which would include input from TxDOT. Driveways would be prohibited with backing movements into the collector, and the developer to investigate the trail opportunity within the electric easement. Condition 12 and 13 are basically with reference to enhanced landscaping and screening and the solid wall and masonry. These two conditions could be with as we mentioned during the workshop, staff is comfortable with these being modified or with the added caveat or language that at DRC discretion. Condition 14 and 15 would give the planning director authorization for minor modifications. And then the last condition is significant changes would come back before Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available should you have any question. And hopefully I've given enough time in case the applicant had any follow-up comments that he wanted to provide, but the engineer is also here. You're welcome.
Commissioners, any questions or comments?
I just one takeaway in my mind is we're still in zoning. We hadn't got to plat, and I know it'll come back before us, but just kind of keep the concept around the park. And is that an option to build into the process? So obviously that was shared and that gentleman's no longer here, but just kind of keep that in mind. I'm not necessarily advocating for maybe putting TISD park in with your park by any means, but I think that's something to consider on that side of town for sure, just as a takeaway for maybe the next meeting.
All right, this case does require a public hearing. We will now open the public hearing. If you wish to speak and are attending in person, please come to the podium. If you're viewing the meeting online, please virtually raise your hand and please state your full name and city of residence for the record. We do request that you limit comments to 3 minutes. We did have a Mr. John Asbury be the first person to sign up. Was that who left earlier? Perfect. That was the only person to actually sign up for this case. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. If there are no more questions or comments from the commissions, I will entertain a motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve item FY-24-11-ZC as presented.
Second.
I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Carney and a second by Commissioner Weaver. Kathy, may we have a vote?
Could I get a point of clarification? So the items, was it 11 and
12
12?
and 13.
12 and 13 related to the buffering and screening that we had worked with the applicant on. We're fine if that goes to DRC, just to look at whether buffering and screening is really needed, because there's the 250-foot overhead electrical easement between the single family and the multifamily. And so there may not be a need for those items 12 and 13, because those are related to buffering and screening. We've got 250 feet there. So if y'all
Motion would need to be approval
just,
with DRC consideration to
Yes.
items 12 and 13.
yes, please.
Okay, I make a motion to approve item FY-24-11-ZC with DRC approval on items 11 and 12, or 12 and 13?
Yes.
12 and 13.
Yeah, second that too.
All right, I have a approval with modifications to condition 12 and 13 by Commissioner Carney with a second by Commissioner Weaver. Kathy, may we have a vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Morales.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Commissioner Jurassic.
Aye.
Commissioner Weaver.
Aye.
Commissioner Jeans.
Aye.
Commissioner Carney.
Aye.
Chair Marshall.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
Thank you. And this item number 5, Commissioner Jeans will have to abstain and recuse himself. All right, we will move on to item number 5, FY-24-3-ZC. Hold a public hearing to discuss and recommend action on a rezoning request on a total of 155.3 acres with development site plan approval from agricultural to single-family 2 plan development on a minimum of 92.29 acres, townhome plan development on a maximum of 14.85 acres, and multifamily 2 plan development on a maximum of 21.13 acres, and general retail plan development on a maximum of 3.87 acres situated in the Nancy Chance Survey, abstract number 5 in Bell County, Texas, and known as Bell County Tax Appraisal District identification numbers 118191, 118194, 46804, 46805, 405911, and 405912. Generally located east of the existing terminus of Jupiter Drive and west of South Kegley Road, approximately 2,500 feet from the intersection of South Kegley Road with West Adams Avenue, and addressed as 990 South Kegley Road and 6224 Jupiter Drive. This case will be presented by Transportation Planner, Mr. Jason Beckman.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. That's quite a mouthful, and I'll try to do my best to carry on. So you see the schedule for this case tonight goes to P and Z for the recommendation, and then council for first reading on February 1st and second reading on February 15th. So that long-winded description was really trying to describe this yellow boundary. This is the proposed rezoning area. So draw your attention to Kegley Road to the east, Jupiter Drive leading off to the west. Old Waco Road is farther away here. Here's the Walmart on West Adams. You see West Adams runs, parallel to the north. And then you've got Wildflower Golf Course to the further to the east, and the little Wildflower Meadows. This is the duplex neighborhood that's immediately adjacent to the project area. There's a drainage channel that runs through it east to west. Pepper Creek also comes down, which is why these property lines are a little bit hard to follow. So Pepper Creek comes through the proposed area. So there's some floodplain that goes with that. But it is a very large area proposed for rezoning. We do have some photos. Normally I will get more photos. Given the scope, was unable to go drive across the fields. But I think these are, kind of emblematic of some situations around the proposed rezoning area. So you've got some residential homes on acreage on Kegley. As stated, the golf course is across the road. This is the newly completed section of Kegley and the new bridge. These are the duplex home. This is right at the corner of Blue Star Boulevard. The proposed rezoning here is off to the left. And then this on the lower right-hand side, that's Jupiter. That's that narrow street with, residential driveways, lots of overhanging trees. And that's where that emergency access that Ms. Huey brought up earlier during the public comment period. So to kind of keep walking you into, where this is and some background to the case. So it was brought forward last fall. There was a public hearing. The case was tabled. During the intervening time, there was more acreage added to the request. So the original rezoning is on the left. The new area with added tracts to the north is shown here. One thing you'll notice from this that is different from that yellow boundary, the original request had this little panhandle. It was an old farm lane to connect two sections of property. Because it was part of the original request, it's still included in the noticing. But you'll notice on there that it has been removed. So that's not going to be part of what's being rezoned, but you just can't downscope what's being noticed. So the original area can be expanded and renoticed. So that goes away. So we're now up to 100. The original acreage was 136 acres. They're up to about 155 acres now, with a breakdown between single-family, townhome, multifamily, and general retail. We'll show you those on the site plan in a minute. So some things to keep in mind when we're looking at the site plan: the different zoning areas that is requested, the thoroughfare plan alignments. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about thoroughfares. And then the Pepper Creek and the drainage and the open space and trails, those two go hand in hand for meeting the parks requirements. So here's the site plan as requested. Note that Kegley is to the bottom of the screen. So north is to your right. This is tilted on its side so I can get the maximum room on the screen and show the detail. So there's 92 acres for single family. Now there's two phases of the single family. One is here next to the Wildflower Meadows, kind of south of this proposed collector. And then there's another 57 acres in phase two that would be more single family. So you get, some townhomes closer up to Kegley. The area that they've requested is general retail, that narrow strip that would face that collector, the multifamily in the middle, another little chunk of townhomes. So as you go from the arterial, you get back into, the denser to the least dense of the single family neighborhoods. I mentioned there's two water courses that run through here. Those shown by these bright green dashed lines. The initial request was strengthened to show this. Parks and Rec had asked for us to strengthen the language on the conditions that these trails will be constructed by the developer. That'll let us implement the Parks and Trails Master Plan. Those would tie back in to the sidewalks that are being constructed with Kegley. You've got some open space shown in green, and that would follow that undevelopable area that's in floodplain now. I'll draw your attention to three collector level connections, two on Kegley. So those are your collector roads that would run east to west. One over here that would dead end when or if this property comes in for development. That part of the thoroughfare plan would enable that traffic to reach out to Old Waco. We've got an emergency access here. So that would be closed with a gate that would only be opened by the first responders. But in terms of, there's an old Army saying, if you make it hard for the enemy to get in, you make it hard for yourself to get out. So in cases of emergency, where these may be the only two entrances, there is a relief valve. There is an escape hatch. So that gate could be opened by fire, police, or EMS to, allow them to access that neighborhood up until such time as, either Hogan Road gets built or this road gets built, that there's another connection. And let's talk about the last two up here to the north. Sundance Drive would be a local street. That's going to be requirement platting regardless. That street is stubbed out. That's a projection. Our code requires developments that come in to tie into existing street connections. And then we have a thoroughfare plan alignment. So they're showing a change When we get to the thoroughfare plan slide, you'll see that there's an alignment that runs north-south. The applicant's shifting theirs over a little bit, and instead of being a straight through collector, they're teeing off. And that would dead end at the Palomino property, which is right here. And then, of course, as you saw earlier, Adams is just off the screen to the right. So those are your main traffic connections. So let's talk about the surrounding zoning. Predominantly, it's crop or farmland, or homes on acreage, larger estates, which you saw in the one photo. The Wildflower Country Club is east. That was zoned as a planned development. The Wildflower Meadows with the duplexes, that was zoned Office 1, which does allow those in that. And then Jupiter Drive, you see it's fairly large lots. And you saw in the photo, the number of driveways on the one side of the road. So this being proposed for residential uses is compliant with, the surrounding uses being primarily residential. So let's spend a little bit more time talking about the thoroughfare plan. I already kind of gave you once over, but I wanted to give you a comparison between what our existing current thoroughfare plan shows and the differences of what they're proposing. So the first thing they're showing is this east-west collector running here. They're moving that down. They are proposing to put a culvert over the creek here to give them a second entrance. This north-south collector, they're moving down the middle of their proposed rezoning area. It would tee off to that area, and then it jogs over. So that's going to slow any traffic down if and when that ever gets built. And we had a long conversation with the property owner up there who indicated that they're not interested in developing now. So that modifies that north-south collector. And then the other unknown is, if it gets built, this is where it would connect to the extension of Hogan Road. And I don't have a full map showing it, but we do have the proposal for Hogan Road, comes from Old Waco across the southern part of this rezoning boundary, crosses Kegley, and then it circumvents or kind of passes around to the south of the golf course for a proposed ultimate connection out to the loop. So we foresee a need, through the thoroughfare plan to handle more traffic, to allow traffic to have another choice besides going down Adams. So will this proposed rezoning make that happen? Not immediately, but it will unlock that connection for the neighboring properties. So it may be, the first step in a years-long process. But the idea behind the thoroughfare plan is to identify the need, have a vision for how traffic is going to flow down the road in the future, and as development comes in, implement that plan in pieces. I did mention that emergency access gate to Jupiter Drive, so that's shown there. That's that one. Kegley Road widening, that is coming. We mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting. It was slated for bids and contract to be awarded around January. That didn't happen. There was an easement that needed to be acquired. They were signing the paperwork to complete that easement and get that recorded. Once that's done, then they can move forward with soliciting bids and awarding a contract. Per Public Works response today is that Kegley Road, the next phase leading from around Blue Stem is where it ends now. So starting here and heading south. Earliest that's going to start is probably April of this year with a proposed construction end date of July. And we know that the first phase took longer than expected. We don't have a worst case, best case end date. We just have that right now, the planned end date is July 25, but there is added capacity coming on Kegley. And it's not just vehicles, it's also, hike and bike pedestrians. So we do have a couple things that are going to ensure that that connectivity is provided. There's a PD condition requiring the width of right-of-way for those collectors, and that right-of-way will include sidewalks, either 5-foot sidewalk on both sides or a 10-foot shared use path on one side within that 66 feet of right-of-way. And the Greenbelt Trail, so you see the dashed green lines on this is our Parks and Trails master plan. So what the applicant is proposing is pretty much a direct reflection of what the Parks and Trails master plan shows. So it is compliant with the thoroughfare plan. So let's spend a little bit more time talking about traffic. Gave you those estimates for when Kegley Road's going to come in. Kegley Road is classified as a minor arterial. Our comp plan states that a minor arterial it handled for between 12,000 and 24,000 daily trips. It's currently carrying about 5,200. And that was data that was collected in 2020. These are TxDOT traffic counts. So the estimated daily trips from the first phase that would come in, which would be the single family and the townhome, would be 2,000 trips per day, 2,300. At full build out, estimating all the multifamily, all the townhomes, 375 lots for single family, that we're looking at probably 6,200 trips per day added on to that 5,000. Now, compounding that, we've got two recent developments. Village on Peppers Creek came in a couple years ago. 208 units would generate, multifamily would generate about 1,400 daily trips. We had a townhome project that came in immediately adjacent to this rezoning request. It was approved right at the end of last year. That would generate about 1,200 trips per day. So when you add that up, it does bring us close to, what Kegley's theoretical capacity is. And I say theoretical. These are traffic estimates. We have access to the Institute of Traffic Engineers trip rates that a mobile home park generates this much. A single family home generates this many trips. A barber shop or a coffee shop also have trip rates. And those are calculated by them going out into the field, counting the cars, how many go into that coffee shop on average. They plot them on a graph and that gives them an idea that, okay, here's the average rate. So you can use that tool to project if it's 375 lots of single family or 300 lots of or units of multifamily to get an idea of what are the dynamics, how drastic of an increase are we talking about. What this is not, and I say this every time, this is not a traffic impact analysis. That has to be conducted by a qualified engineer. I am not a licensed professional engineer. I've read a few of those. I've been in some training for travel modeling where you plug in socioeconomic status, employment status, median income, household size. And it calculates both the trips that would be generated, the trips that are attracted. So homes generate trips, businesses attract trips. And it assigns those turning movements and it loads the network. What I'm not able to do is to say of these 1,400 trips or these 6,200 trips, how many of them are going to turn on to Kegley and go north? How many of them are going to use Wildflower as a cut through? That's a comment that we've heard. That are going to use Wildflower to get to the loop. How many of them are going to turn right and go south? When Tanglehead comes in and connects to Old Waco, and Old Waco eventually gets built to connect to 35, all those things are going to change the choices that people make. I don't have the tool or the license to predict what those turning movements are. So take these for what they are. They're an estimate. They're a ballpark figure. Now, in terms of the plan development conditions, ballpark figures aside, common sense does apply. We know that traffic needs multiple outlets and multiple options. If you give folks a couple different options, that reduces that bottleneck. That allows that traffic to flow better. So we do have plan development conditions that we're going to require the applicant as this gets built out to comply with their site plan, to comply with our thoroughfare plan. And just for comparison, Adams, if you can read, it might be a little bit small on the screen. The current counts on Adams are anywhere from 30,000 to 23,000 to 28,000. Yeah, and that's, depending on those businesses, depending on time of day and, where those trips are originating and where they're ending. So Adams carries a far larger volume of traffic than Kegley currently does. Future land use plan, or what we call the future development plan, does show this area proposed for residential neighborhood services, primarily new single family, duplexes, townhouses, should be on a collector, and emphasis on pedestrian bicycle facilities, which this does provide all those. And we do have conditions for the sidewalks and trails for the various phases. So this is compliant with the future development plan. One more point I wanted to make on that. This is not within this corridor mixed use area or this mixed use activity center, which is that hashed area. But, that recognizes that the intersection of Kegley and Adams, does warrant some additional consideration. So it's not within it, but it is close. And we have tried to look at that, that mixture of uses as we've evaluated this plan. That said, it's compliant with the residential and neighborhood services designation. There is sewer that runs through here. There's water nearby in terms of available utilities. Once they start building that infrastructure, that's going to be designed and evaluated by our public works engineers during the plating phase. If there's extensions or increased capacity, that's going to be on the developer to construct those. And that'll be reviewed through the DRC process and the engineering plan review. But as far as access to existing utilities, it is compliant with the water and sewer. So overall, looking at all of our plans, we evaluate these plan developments. Do they break the code? Are they compliant with our future plans of what we envision develop and look like? And it is compliant with all of those plans and code requirements. So we did send out a number of notices, send out 2 rounds of notices, in fact, as this has gone through review and as the applicant has made changes and sent them back out. We did receive 7 in agreement, 6 in disagreement. Some of these are from the same owner. We've received a few more, or sorry, not 6, 11. I can scrutinize this slide 18 times and I don't find it until I get in front of the crowd. So forgive me for the typo. 11 notices returned in disagreement. We also received 3 emails and phone calls from some neighbors over in Wildflower off of Sunflower and Larkspur and Daisy. So they're outside the notice boundary, but certainly they would be impacted and affected by this proposed zoning. Those responses were included in your packet. So we've continued to receive notices and responses back today. One of the things that Brian mentioned during the workshop, there is a code requirement that if more than 20% of the noticed area, so the noticed area is this red boundary. So if more than 20% of that area is measured in, that acreage is measured in disagreement, if more than 20% of that is in disagreement, it triggers the council supermajority. We've asked our mapping folks to make that calculation. Have not heard back from them yet, though we'll get that prior to the council, whether or not they have that supermajority, that 4/5 requirement. And finally, the newspaper printed notice of the public hearing on January 4th, 2024, in accordance with state law and local ordinance. On the general retail zoning, staff does not recommend the GR zoning. We did discuss it with the applicant. We proposed downgrading it to neighborhood services. That takes a lot of those high traffic uses off of the table. And there's a further PD condition to take some uses that would otherwise be permitted by right in the NS zoning. Also, those would be taken off the table per this ordinance. So staff recommends approval of the plan development and rezoning request from agricultural to single family 2 plan development, townhome, multifamily, and neighborhood services with the development site plan labeled as Exhibit A and subject to the following conditions. Much like Mark, I'm not going to read all 23 conditions. I'll give you a chance to look at these while I have a drink of water. So these are some selected ones that we do want to highlight. So at the top, we just establish, besides what's shown on the site plan, put it in black and white in the ordinance. These are the general acreages for the different zoning areas. The Exhibit A site plan is binding. So if there are significant changes that come from that, this may have to come back for review by P&Z and council. We will require the preliminary plat, so that gives staff an early picture of what the different phases may look like for the local streets, the lot sizes, the utility, where those water and sewer line going to be installed. The collector roadways is minimum 66 feet of right of way. Residential driveways are permitted are prohibited on those collectors. And should note that the 66-foot right of way, that was something that came out of both the comp plan and the mobility master plan. Our unified development code has not been updated. We're in the process of doing that to make it a code requirement for the collector to have the larger right of way. So the plan development gives us an opportunity to get the right of way that we've determined is necessary for both vehicle and pedestrian traffic. So that's why we have that condition in there. 9, 10 cover the connectivity. 11 and 12. So that, the traffic, there's been a lot of concern about the traffic. There's a few things in the code that are already going to be applicable. We've just included them in the ordinance just to strengthen and make it clear both to the applicant, to the public, and for future planners. If there's a change in staff, when the final plat comes in, they're going to go back and look at the ordinance and they'll be reminded, hey, make sure you're providing enough entrances, enough street connections to handle the density of homes that come in here, regardless of whether they're single family, multifamily, or townhomes. Our subdivision entrance standards have firm limitations of how many connections are needed to handle a certain amount of homes. So with 2 improved entrances, which is those 2 collectors that we saw onto Kegley, they can get up to 300 dwellings. We don't dictate to them whether they need to build the townhomes first, the multifamily first, the single family. That's on the engineer to figure out. But it's going to be limited until that 3rd entrance, that collector entrance. So whether that's Tanglehead or Hogan or some other connection to be made, then they're going to be limited to the number of dwellings that can be constructed as part of this entire 155-acre plan development. So to reiterate, that's part of our code already. We're just strengthening that by putting it in the ordinance for the PD condition. Any multifamily development, there'll be site plan review by the director of planning. The neighborhood services also look at those. Is it a coffee shop? Is it a restaurant? How's the parking? Where's the dumpsters? We want to make sure that those businesses are going to be good neighbors to the folks of the south in Wildflower Meadows with those duplexes. And that there is a plan to handle that traffic coming out of that collector in the rezoning, coming out to Kegley. How is that flowing? That'll be assessed with that site plan. We can't evaluate until we know, is it a barber shop? Is it a daycare center? Is it an insurance salesman office? All of which have different needs and different traffic generation. That's why that site plan comes in and can be approved by the director of planning. There's a list of certain uses that will be prohibited in the neighborhood services, fuel sales being one of them. Again, we don't want that high traffic convenience store to be built here. That's just going to add more traffic than our infrastructure has the capacity to handle at the moment. And then any significant deviations from the development site plan. So changing the acreages of the single family versus the multifamily, a drastic realignment of one of those collectors. If they're not going to build the trail along the drainage channel, they want to meander that through the neighborhood. All of those could require a formal approval. So this would be renoticed. It would come back to this commission and then back to city council. And that's pretty standard on most of our planned developments that, this isn't necessarily, to Commissioner Weaver's comment about a rubber stamp. There's a check on learning that at a certain point, this requires that subjective review and approval and requires the public to be notified. That formal approval would require that public hearing notice to make sure this is being given every bit of scrutiny. We've seen this with other plan development zonings where maybe it was several years before the final plats came in and there were significant changes. Then let's talk to the current residents and let's talk to the current planning staff and current city leadership, members of this commission and council. Is this still what we envision for Temple? So that's why that significant deviation condition exists. So this will conclude my presentation. I will take a drink of water and then any questions or discussion you may have, I will stand by.
Thank you, Jason. I do have a question for clarity. So when I read in item 5 for that 3.87 acres, it says general retail.
Correct.
Voting on general retail in this, or are we voting on neighborhood services?
I'll defer to Kyle, but the answer would be someone would have to make a motion to change the approval as presented by staff. And Kyle, do you want to give specific guidance on that, please?
Yeah, and it is in the conditions that they put up there. It is noticed for general retail because that's what the applicant requested. The recommendation from P and Z can be more restrictive, but can't be less than restrictive than what was noticed. So neighborhood services is a more restrictive category, less uses than you can have in general retail. And therefore you can change it to neighborhood services is my understanding.
We don't, like on the last case, we don't have to specifically state with the change to neighborhood service because it's in the conditions.
It is in the conditions, so I would say as long as you stay with the conditions as presented, including the neighborhood services instead of general retail, just so that it's clear.
Thank you, Kyle.
You can stay calm. So I think with you're welcome.
Get comfortable.
This is 2 meetings in a row, Kyle. I'm sorry. I'll be nicer next time. No, I think with this amount of participation, I think there's value added in taking a couple minutes and explaining. Tonight, we're seeing this as a zoning case, and then there's going to be a plating case. I think the knowledge behind what those two things look like. So if you could just spend a couple minutes explaining what we're doing tonight versus what we'll do when plating comes around.
Yeah, so the zoning case is just determining what types of uses can go into this area. Right now, only agricultural uses can go into the area. And this is proposing to change that to various residential uses, some of which are single family homes, some of which we've got townhome there and multifamily. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what will be there. It means that that is the zoning code that they'll have to compare to the use table and any conditions that we have on here as to what they are permitted to do with it. If you look, the neighboring community right there is zoned O1. Well, O1 is officially Office 1, but one of the permissible uses is duplexes. So they built duplexes. So that's what a zoning thing does, is it just puts it into one of those many compartments of these are the permissible uses versus these are the impermissible uses. A PD does change that a little bit. You do have to comply with things such as a site plan showing where the uses are going to be, where approximately you're going to put roads and trails, and any significant changes would have to come back for reconsideration. And we've seen that previously when conditions were, the developer was like, I can't deal with this condition, brought it back to see if planning and zoning and city council would be okay with a change to that condition, and the neighborhood got to weigh in on that change to that condition as well. Now, when we get to plating, it's more of a ministerial thing. You guys get to review them, but it is, if it meets what's in our UDC as in terms of uses, in terms of the standards for size and everything like that, if it meets all the codes, you have to approve it. There are certain things, the exceptions to the UDC, I think we discussed earlier during workshop, where you do actually get to decide whether you're going to approve it, where that's a policy issue. But in general, if they meet the requirements, then it's going to be approved. And if it's not going to be approved, P&Z has to explain under what section it is not meeting the code.
Thank you, Kyle. And then I guess just that's all I needed from you, Kyle. I'm taking it easy tonight. I think just from a traffic impact side of this, Jason, obviously I'm concerned that we don't have let me back up and say, I wish we knew if it was 20% or not from those that were saying no to it. I guess my question, Kyle, I'm glad you're still standing there. If we said, of course, we still have the weigh in tonight from the citizens. Could we postpone this and await that number to understand what that trigger would look like? So in other words, could this all be for naught if we know for sure that there's going to have to be a supermajority, and that maybe that should be part of this conversation, or kind of what's the recommendation or thought process there?
Well, we do have it on a schedule of when we are expecting it to go to council. I can't remember what that schedule was.
February 1st.
February
Yeah, that's
1st.
already been sent out with the notices.
Yeah, so that notice has been provided, that's when the public hearing is going to be. We would have to, well, statutorily, we don't have to, but because of our policy, we generally go ahead and we re-notice if we're changing that city council public hearing. The statute only requires P and Z public hearing. We do city council public hearing so that we can be as open and fair to everybody and make sure that any thoughts are aired both to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the city council. But unlike plats, it is not on a shot clock. It is not required to be considered in a specific time period. If you guys made a motion to table it, it could be tabled. We did notice that the public hearing was today, so we'd still go through with the public hearing though.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm just simply talking through it just so I can understand what all avenues we have here on our side. And then if we made the motion not to approve, we ran into this last meeting. So I want to make sure that we're clear on how this process works. So in the event one of us decided to make the motion not to approve tonight, that would be sufficient. It would only be if someone made the motion to say yes, and then the majority said no, that's when we have to turn around and have another motion.
Yes, and I think last time I said it, you essentially have 3 options for recommendations. You have a 4th option, which is a motion to table until
Sure.
the next meeting, but you have 3 options. One is approve as presented. Number 2 is approve, adding your additional conditions. And the number 3 option would be to recommend disapproval to city council. All 3 of these are recommendations. What recommending disapproval does is that motion, if the motion to disapprove were approved by a majority, then it would trigger the supermajority in city council.
Understood. Thank you, Kyle.
I have a question about Kegley. So up there it says 4 lanes, so it's phase 3 and 4 gonna be 4 lanes?
No, it's 2, Kegley is 2 lanes with the center turn lane. That should say the comp plan is, you can have a 2-lane arterial or a 4-lane arterial. So that's on me to not have all that detail on there. That's why you've got that range. Let me sit closer to the mic. That's why you have that range from 12,000 to 24,000 based on the lane configurations.
There's already a pothole on.
Can you sit closer to the mic? I think folks are having problems.
Yeah,
hearing
sorry.
you. There we go.
I think the biggest issue is obviously Kegley. I mean, it took us 3 years and God knows how much money to do that small little section. And I was driving on it last week and there's already a pothole this big on the new section. And I mean, again, just my observation of Kegley, the great road that we know it is.
With the issues of Kegley's existing infrastructure, the 2 enhanced entrances, we go back to the
Go here. They do mention it's 3-lane with 1 lane in, 2 lane out. So that'll allow those, the incoming and, the turning movements coming in and out to have fewer conflicts.
So we're requiring the 2 entrances though, because of the 2 section of that's considered in phase 1. So for all intents and purposes, the northern section is just going to service this townhouse residence piece, it's not actually going to connect to Sundance.
Correct.
And then the other one, the southern one, is going to connect to Jupiter in order to get to that phase
Right.
one.
There will be a local road that would be within the development. There may be homes that front on that local road.
So what I'm getting at is for all of this PDFS2 phase one, we're looking at having one way to get out of the neighborhood, and that is only through, obviously it's not Jupiter because Jupiter's gated off, but to the
Right.
south through Kegley.
Correct. Which is why we've got that condition to limit. So they can choose which phase is most important to them. You know, once they hit that 300 dwelling unit, we're going to put a stop on plats coming in because it's just, unless they can show that they're going to be able to build the street to create that third entrance, not just, you know, and I'll use this neighborhood collector that they're requesting, you know, up here to the north. If the Palomino family never sells their property, then that road continues to be a dead end at that drainage channel. That will never count to allow them to have more dwellings. The applicant is going to have to construct it, show that the road is going to be in before we're going to approve any plat that would take the number of dwellings over 300 within this area. So it does put it back onto the applicant to make it happen, to get them the density that they're requesting. Now, admittedly, and this is where, you know, staff has worked, you know, with the applicant for quite a while, because I think we share your concerns. But admittedly, it does leave a lot of maybe gray area or unanswered questions. We don't know when, you know, are they going to bring in the single family first or the multifamily? We don't know. When is Hogan going to become available that maybe that's their third entrance? We don't know. All we're saying is we're not allowing more homes to come in than those two entrances can handle until there's additional roads that are built that would handle the traffic generated by those homes. Yes, sir.
Well, can we put a stipulation that they couldn't develop until certain other infrastructure projects were completed?
It creates a big problem. I mean, because you're making their development contingent on something that's completely outside of their control.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to go back to the conversation that Jason and Derek were just having. You say two entrances, but really we're saying there's one inch. Yeah, it's one entrance.
One to 300 essentially.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you. You didn't even have to say anything, Jason. Good job.
Wait, let me clarify. No, it's two entrances get you 300 dwellings.
Well, but you're not going to have two entrances to the large SF2 area. You're only going to
Right.
have
It's just the
one.
one. Because unless
So, I
you
mean,
can,
unless the townhouses are considered in that 300 count.
that's, we're on the same thought
But-
process.
So, you know, I mean, that's part of it too. I mean, okay. They're going to build this entrance into this townhouse area, but then they're going to build 300 single family homes in the SF2 PD zoning area. You know,
Over on the left. So
You see
you
what I'm
got two
saying?
phases, you got two phase ones on
Right.
your map. So the one entrance is for all of that for phase one, single family. Oh, no, single family, two in the back. And then you've got the one entrance, yes, but it's only going to service that, the townhouse corner. So really you have one entrance for that entire single family section.
So let me go over to this one, where the traffic now doesn't show the entrances, but I think you've gotten pretty familiar with it. One entrance to Kegley is going to be in this lobe, you know, the other one down here closer to Wildflower Meadows. 375, and these are estimates, you know, kind of based on the acreage and density. The condition says 300 dwellings within this plan development. So if they build the first 100 townhomes, They're gonna have 200
reverse
single
that section
family.
though, Jason. What if they built 0 townhomes? They put that entrance there, but they built 0 townhomes.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And then they build 300 single family homes.
Correct.
That are now just using that one entrance
They
alone.
wouldn't be able to build 300 single family homes with just the one entrance. They would have to
Has to
build
have
both of
connectivity
those.
to the second entrance.
You
get to
have to
300.
show 2 improved entrances to reach 300 units per our subdivision entry standards,
What is it? What's the maximum with one? entry?
150.
But go back to your map one more time. We're gonna get there.
No, I mean, and please ask the questions. Staff has been racking their brains on this. We've worked with the applicant. They have produced multiple versions of this.
Yeah. Well, and this is just, yeah,
So
this has been
we're-
ongoing. So the phase one yellow,
Mhm.
the single family in the back, I'm saying the top left corner of this,
The mustard
the
yellow.
most they could put there without putting use the example we were just talking about. We do no townhomes. The most they could put in on the single family in the back would be 150 because they would only have one entrance that would connect
Right.
to that area.
Until they built this
The
going up
connector.
to the north and then connect out, this would be future Tanglehead.
Sure.
So maybe that helps to,
Yeah.
kind of differentiate. So future Tanglehead and future collector here. Whether they built one to the north or south, if they're only building one, they're only going to get 250 units. Once they build both of these and it's connected, they can't just build it and not build the bridge. for
That's the piece that
example.
we were,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we were saying. It's like, yeah, you can say you have 2 entrances, but unless those 2 things connect at the top,
Correct.
you still just have 2 entrances that aren't, yeah. Okay, we're aligned now.
And that's a great point.
I mean, I still hate that Kegley's not done, just as a side note, but
And I'm going
that
to
does
ask,
clarify.
I'll ask, the room, the commission, Brian and Kyle. Let me go to the full language. Number 11, final plat showing a maximum 300 dwellings within the plan development may be approved with a minimum of the 2 enhanced entrances that shall be constructed during the initial phase. Do we need to strengthen that language to say those 2 entrances must connect to each other? Basically, does it have to implement the site plan shown here? Because I think if you wanted to be particular,
Yeah, I
could-
think
you
if you
could
don't, you're
build-
leaving it for interpretation.
you could build one here and build 150 off that one. You could build this one and build 150, and you'd be compliant with the code. But I think what you're saying is we want to make sure that these 2 connections allow, if this is bottlenecked, if there's an accident and the ambulance is blocking that there is a safety
Right.
relief valve.
And it's not
is what you're
Jupiter, just to
saying.
clarify.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a great question that I'd like someone else to speak on.
I would recommend it.
Mhm.
I would recommend.
That was condition number 11. So I'm gonna make a note on, let me get back down to. So that reword that to say the final plats with the minimum of the 2 enhanced entrances that would connect to each other. Would be the
If-
language.
If we use the existing language and then we add a second sentence, both entrances must be available for use from anywhere in the development.
There we go. Both entrances available for use from anywhere within the development. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good news is we're 46 minutes in and we hadn't heard from the community yet. So I guess it's almost time. So that's all I have for
Yeah.
this. So
I will note, the applicant's engineer sitting in the room, so
Good.
there's questions that could be answered there as well.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Jason.
Why was it Jupiter selected to have that?
For the reasons that Ms. Huey stated, it can't handle the traffic. We would not want to open that up and have residential traffic trips coming in and out of there. People would use Jupiter if this was constructed And I say this as a transportation planner, I know how, drivers think sometimes. A lot of times they don't make logical choices, but sometimes they make very logical choices, which is take the path of least resistance. So if the applicant were to build a public road from Jupiter that would connect to Wildflower, the volume of traffic that would go down Jupiter would destroy the existing pavement, and it would be not a good idea.
Yeah, Jupiter's a very small.
Right.
I'm asking why that was even thought of, why were they pulling from the neighborhood that touches West Adams? Why was the road on Jupiter even?
Two reasons. One, and I'll go back to earlier slide. One, when this first came in and when we were crafting the conditions and we were planning that emergency access, this property or this zoning request didn't touch Sundance. So there wouldn't have been an option to get out to West Adams.
Do we have to have that? Have it connected to Sundance?
I would recommend keeping it. It gives that escape valve. We've done this in a couple of the neighborhoods where there's that click to enter gate that, the fire and EMS can open, but it blocks it off for public traffic.
Hard to maintain that city.
The city would. Now, the applicant would construct it.
Without being needed to be open.
Right. And, if Hogan gets built, if Tanglehead gets built, that gate may never be needed. But I think, we've talked with the fire marshal, he's in favor of having the gate there, just to give him an option, to get their apparatus through there, just in case.
But if we add,
Sorry. If we add the additional condition that we were just discussing, which is saying that these two have to connect, which isn't part of this discussion right now, does that not alleviate? Because fire marshal or the fire chief hasn't had a chance to even have that thought process. Instead of having this connection to Jupiter, if we said we no longer need this because we put a condition in that says these two have to connect, would, once again, I guess I'm going back to there seems to be some more conversation that needs to be had, but what are your thoughts there?
I'm going to stick with keep it.
Okay.
We've had this discussion of what our subdivision entry standards require, what they prohibit, and where there's some gray area of what's a good idea. And that's a hard thing to put into code. As we've heard from some of the neighbors, when I-35 gets backed up, people shortcut off of Charter Oak and they come up
100%.
Kegley. I've done that myself.
100%.
If Kegley is backed up for some, emergent situation, and you've got those two entrances, they're both under the same road that's bottlenecked already because of I-35 traffic or an accident on Adams, you name it. Having that additional outlet would give me peace of mind.
What if your additional outlet was Sundance? What if I'm just throwing this out there again, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to think through maybe some of the questions we're going to have. If we said we didn't need the Jupiter tag, let's call it that for now, and we made it a condition that you had to connect, plus you had to have the connection to Sundance. So then you could have the entrance from West Adams onto Sundance into the development, plus the two connections on Kegley. Then you could get rid of the Jupiter deal altogether. Does that give you any more peace of mind? I'm advocating against it, as you can tell.
Maybe. I would say that Adams is pretty congested, definitely at peak hour, but certainly throughout the day. Keeping that entrance to Sundance open and taking away a gate. So now that, first responders, if Kegley's unavailable, then their only access is Sundance. And I'm brainstorming, I'm speaking out loud here, so follow me through. And I'm going to kind of think worst case scenario. If Kegley's backed up, then it's likely Adams is as well. And if we take away the emergency gate on Jupiter, even if we put an emergency gate on Sundance so that that doesn't become a public thoroughfare, you're still making your emergency access onto a road that may not allow those responders to get there as quickly as possible.
I guess in my mind, my mental aptitude says I would much rather count on a West Adams, a Sundance, or a
Mhm.
Kegley being available over a Jupiter. That's my mindset, but
Those
Um,
could still be the primary routes if they're available. The Jupiter is just intended to be if those are not available.
Right.
sure. Sure.
Yeah, that's the contingency. It is certainly not the primary. I mean, you have your primary, your alternate, your contingency, and then your emergency. This is the contingency to open Jupiter. Your primary and alternate are the two entrances onto Kegley.
And these are all great questions, but we can certainly continue that part of the conversation, perhaps after we hear from the neighbors. Thank you.
All right, this case does require a public hearing. We will now open the public hearing. If you wish to speak and are attending in person, please come to the podium. If you're viewing the meeting online, please virtually raise your hand. Please list your name and city, full name and city of residence for the record. We do ask that we limit comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Quite a few folks have signed in on the sign-in sheet. I'm going to start there. If I mispronounced your name, please forgive me. But the first one up is Mr. Albert Palomino. Yes, sir. If you want to, yes, sir.
My name is Albert Palomino. I live at 15 Palomino Drive. And my question is something that you mentioned that just heard you a little while ago. So if this zoning that you're going to pass tonight, you're going to restrict our private property to not be able to build there or do as we please?
This
I mean, we don't have
rezoning-
any intentions on that, but I want to know
Right.
if we're going to be restricted to that.
This rezoning wouldn't constrict your use of property at all. The only
I thought
thing
I heard you say that.
the only thing that would affect you, if you decided to develop and this gets approved and they build that purple connection on the road, if that is built and you come in to develop, then that development would be asked to connect to that collector to allow that traffic to flow through. That being said, we've had a number of cases where we had a developer come in that didn't want to make connections for various reasons. There's part of the code that allows them to ask for an exception. So if it came in to get platted and lay out lots and lay out new streets, and we said, you have to connect to that purple alignment, that neighborhood collector, and they said, we don't want to. Okay, staff recommends against it, and they would take it to city council. And then council could make the decision, are they going to approve that exception? But I would say that's far outside the scope of this development. Brian, did you want to? Okay.
Well, I just wanted to add one thing, Mr. Palomino. And keep in mind too, that if that connection is made, that what's shown there in the pink or light purple, whichever, then it may be dedicated as right of way, but it isn't necessarily going to be built right up to your property line. So you would, if it depends on development, if you ever decide to develop your property, to make that connection so that you don't have this dead end street for all of eternity that you'd have to look at. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but
Well,
wanted to explain that.
Here's my thought on that is that it's private property. We don't have any intentions on building. But that's not to say that something might change in the future.
Mhm.
Because you see, I'm here today, I might be gone tomorrow. So it's a family property. And on their behalf, we don't want any kind of road through there. It was meant for family privacy. So in accordance with what y'all presented, you want to put a road through there with 5-foot sidewalks on both sides. You're going to take up most of our property.
Just to clarify that as long as you own your property, no road is going through there.
Right.
So it's just if you decide to ever sell or you decide to develop or kids or grandkids and future generations decide to develop, either way, any road going through there would be dependent on future development, either by you or your heirs or someone that you sell to. So as long as you all don't want a road going through there, there wouldn't be a road going through there.
So if we build a house, we just gotta give it to them.
No, if you buy a house, if you build a house, a single house, we're not going to require, and that could be something that you clarify in the conditions that, a single house on their property does not require a new road. And so we don't require a new road if it's a single house. If it were developed for multiple houses in which they needed an additional roadway, that roadway would have to come through there, but not a single house, probably not two. Kyle, help me out.
Yeah, it would only be triggered if you were doing something like this where you were rezoning, or if you were to subdivide it, turn it into a neighborhood. So if you're just building a single family house on your property as it exists now, that's not going to trigger it. It's only going to be triggered if you subdivide it and put, 10 houses on there,
Right.
Then, you've got to deal with the thoroughfare plan, with the road on the thoroughfare plan, just like they have had to deal with the roads on the thoroughfare plan, like the future Tanglehead, that was on the thoroughfare plan. The one crossing there, yeah, the Sundance wasn't on the thoroughfare plan, but was a stub out, so they had to connect to that.
Well, even though y'all are presenting Sundance, that road is, I just don't really see it putting more congestion into Adams as there is right now. If anybody's traveled Adams in the morning or in the afternoon or even during the day sometimes, got a lot of traffic on it because of Walmart, I guess, But, the other thing to me, this is my opinion on that, on your statements, is that I don't understand that the road that runs just east of Walmart, where there's a light where you turn into it, is that cities or is that private?
Old Waco Road?
No, where there's a light right there. You got Walmart, the filling station.
I don't think that's actually a
Oh,
legal road. I think it's just a public.
That's a
private
private road.
access.
It's the commercial.
You have a
entrance.
light there already and you got a
Yeah.
good road. You got a lot of traffic over. It seems like Walmart would be all for that. Those traffic's going through there. It doesn't interfere with their parking. That's just my opinion. Besides going through a community where there's kids and family and just like us, you put a road through us and we got family out there and stuff. We don't want that kind of traffic. There again, my statement, I voted no on it, but just because of the congestion on Adams, what we see every morning, we have to come out of there every morning, we see it. And it proposes a big unsafe danger on everybody. And the other thing is when you say future track, it just pointing the finger right there. I want to go right there, and that's what we don't want. That's not what was, the land wasn't bought for that. It's bought for private use, so.
thank you, Mr. Crowley. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut your time. One point of clarity too, tonight, this board is not voting to approve this zoning. We're an advisory board. We're actually taking our recommendation to council. We all will be renoticed for that as well, but just advisory board. Just wanted to clarify that tonight. We are not voting to approve. We're voting to recommend to council to make their ultimate decision, just FYI. Next on the list is Mr. Fred Oborn.
My name is Fred Oborn. I live at 5304 Wildflower Lane. So this traffic will definitely just go straight by my house. One of the things that hasn't been presented here tonight is two other projects that have been approved by the city council recently in the past year or so, maybe longer. You know, you have Pepper Creek right here. That traffic is either going straight out into Adams or it's coming out of the Kegley. That's the only two places those people have to leave that particular area. Also, you just approved, or city council approved the other day. Oh, by the way, that has 200 and
Pepper Creek is 208 units,
208, and the other one's going to have
175.
175. That's one that just got approved. That comes straight into Kegley. Straight into Kegley. Doesn't have an outs
That's correct.
to add. So those houses already been approved to go on Kegley. So they either go one way, they go to Adams, or they go to Kegley. And if Kegley gets backed up, it's not done like we looked at tonight, then all that traffic is going to be bounced right back through our neighborhood. And if you haven't been on Wildflower or Sunflower, if people park their cars on the road and when coming up on the loop, it's bumper to bumper. I can show you all the pictures you want to do. We get out there, take pictures up, and I mean, it's a bumper to bumper from Kegley all the way back to the entrance. And that's what happens. And we know what it is. Now, my understanding, you said these numbers are 2020 numbers?
Those are the 2020 text dot counts. So
Okay.
just so you understand what's being shown.
Okay, so that's
Those-
2020, which is 3 years ago.
Yeah. Can I give you a little context, sir?
Sure.
And make sure this doesn't count against this time. I mean, you're understanding what we're showing you. TxDOT does annual accounts. Those are shown in either the black or the blue stations. So that 28,700 on Adams, that's an annual account. So that's 22.
Okay.
The red ones, every 5 years, TxDOT does what they call urban saturation. So they go off onto the local streets. That gives them an idea of what traffic is coming on, because Adams is a TxDOT roadway. It's FM 2305. Those urban saturations give them a picture of how development has changed, how much traffic is going to load onto their network. So that's what the red ones are, the local counts. That's why that's a 2020. We get our 5-year urban sats on the 5 and 10.
Okay. And this particular development here, from my understanding, I understand the restrictions on 150 and 300. The total allotted in this particular area, I believe, is 775 units that can be built in this area.
And that's an
775. And where's that traffic going? You know, we will believe that Hogan Road will be built. I'm glad you all believe that it's going to go, because it's going to hit Kegley. And then it's supposed to go to the loop. But they have to buy somebody's property to do that. And I don't know if he's prepared to do that. Okay, we talked about Sundance, talked about Jupiter, flood zone. That was the other thing I had. You know, those of us that play golf on Wildflower, live on Wildflower, when that creek gets full, it floods Wildflower Golf Course when that particular flood zone. Now you're getting ready to move a whole bunch of dirt, or they're going to be moving a whole bunch of dirt. I didn't see any place where they were having I guess that comes up in the plat, where all that water has to go.
That's correct.
And that's something that has to be considered, because where's that water going to go, and who? And that was the other point I wanted to bring up. You've done a great job tonight as far as discussing the main thing that we have, and that is the amount of traffic. The amount of traffic you're going to put on 2 roads going through a neighborhood that has only one purpose, and that's to go from the loop to Kegley. No other place for us to go. That's our only option. And when you shut down those roads, like happened construction of Kegley, we only had one way in and out. And to go the one way in and out, we had to go all the way, loop back around, instead of somebody didn't think about opening up that road there to the left a little bit. Thank you for my time.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Next on the list is Patricia Johnson.
Honorable council persons, I appreciate and ditto the comments that many of you have on the concerns of the traffic on Kegley Road. I too have that concern, in addition to the comments that were previously made to Wildflower neighborhood. I live at 4017 Sunflower Lane in Temple, Wildflower neighborhood. The 2020 traffic stats on Kegley are laughable compared to what is actually happening today. It would be prudent of the city to count the traffic to make it more accurate of what is happening today. Kegley Road is 2 lanes with a turn lane, not 4 lanes. So that's a correction that has been made already. Optimistically, with the build out of Kegley Road, I am optimistically betting that it will take about 5 years in contrast to what has, and comparison to what has taken in the past. The potential of traffic is atrocious. It's a nightmare of epic proportions. We have golf cart crossings, we have people walking, we have 2-lane roads, which allows parking on either side of the street that cause backup of traffic already of intolerable proportions. There's speeding that goes up and down. All of those 2 neighborhood crossover streets that exit to the loop, with people disregard of the speed signs. Kegley Road, as it is now, will not handle the increased traffic of the proposed development, nor will it be able to handle it adequately in the future with just 2 lanes. Adding this appears to create additional traffic through Wildflower with traffic nightmares, worse than that of what currently we see on West Adams. This is a neighborhood. We're residential, and you're making, with the potential of the traffic, it will become a thoroughfare. And that's what it was not originally intended to this. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next on the list is Jimmy and Patty Phillips.
Oh, you came on.
I came along with you.
Jimmy and Patty Phillips.
Phyllis.
We live at the Wildflower Country Club. We lived there 26 years and we love it there. But anyway, Kegley has been an ongoing problem. It was just suitable for a buckboard, but it still is on half of it. And anyway, those Wildflower duplexes, right about there is the new part of it. And you can see the cars speed up. You know, it's already, there needs to be a patrol officer out there. But anyway, that's our main concern is the shortcut, which so many people are using now to get to the loop, Sunflower Lane and Wildflower Lane. And then another problem we're having, not that it's y'all's problem, but I-35 on the weekends, going south primarily, is so backed up, locked down. So people on their navigation system, oh, there's a shortcut. We can get on this loop up there at Buc-ee's, you know, and come around. And then they parade down, come in our front entrance, and then goes directly down Wildflower, then take a left on Kegley and get back over there. It doesn't help them that much, but they don't realize that. But anyway, I mean, you talk about a traffic jam on the weekends in our neighborhood. That Wildflower just, so anyway, so if we, you know, the what's it called, the Villages on the Creek, that new apartment deal, it hasn't even opened yet. And I'm sure it's got an outlet to 2305 and plus Kegley. And then those other apartments that's been there a long time over by Bush's Chicken, they've got a back outlet to Kegley. And so this new deal, I'm sure it's going to have, but anyway, it's just going to be a shortcut.
It's terrible.
And all, but anyway.
Well, and I've just said, I've been out patrolling. I'm the neighborhood patroller, and on Fridays, I have counted on Friday starting at 4:30 to 6:30 at night. There have been as many as 125 cars that are cutting through our neighborhood. And they don't just cut through the neighborhood. They drive 2 by 2. They think it's a one-way road. And here they go, down to head on to everybody that might be living in the neighborhood coming up. And I've called the police. I've gone down to the police station. I asked them, I took my name, address, said I would really appreciate someone to come on Fridays, just on Fridays, to patrol this for me. And I'm on my golf cart and I'm stopping them. That's what I'm doing. I may get in trouble for that. But I'm tired of it, and it is dangerous for our neighborhood. Our neighborhood has 156 homes. That's a lot of people to me. You're talking about 500 new homes. I can't even imagine. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. And I hope that the city commission will vote it down too. But I don't want it. I don't want it.
And like I say, Kegley, when you start putting that much traffic, whenever I hope it's completed in our lifetime.
I think
because it's taken forever. That
dead.
first phase, which was about 200 yards, it took 2 years. Then the second phase, of course, they had to build a bridge, but that took a long time too. But
No, we'll be dead. We'll be dead
you put
before
that much traffic on that road, and there's fault lines all through there anyway. I don't even know if the road's going to hold up anyway, but you load it down with that much traffic, and I think that land's more suitable for farming and cattle.
Yeah, we've
Thank
had cattle
Thank y'all.
trucks and 18-wheelers down Wildflower Lanes and trying to do U-turns. It's no good. It's no good.
Thank y'all. Next on the list, Kreider. So Don Kreider? Yes, sir. There you are.
I have to second what they say. I'm Don Kreider. I live at 5303 Wildflower. I have videos where traffic is backed all the way up. If the freeway slows down, it comes to our property now. And it's just ludicrous to say that the people coming out are going to go on Kegley either way. Because if the only people that are going to take Kegley are the ones that want to go south when they reach the loop, when they reach 35. The rest of them are going to go right up Wildflower because Adams has reached capacity. There's no more capacity. They talk about 2020. I lived there in 2020. And if you went off the loop to 2305 during rush hour, 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars. Now it's 4 blocks trying to get on to Adams. And that's why the figures on Kegley are so out of date for traffic. It's at least doubled since 2020. And that's now. And we're not adding all these people. I'm not against putting residents there, but what are we going to do? Today, we had a couple service vehicles parked right in front of my house that weren't for me, but they were parked there. And another pickup had to go through. That road's, that's it. He barely got through. That's not a road that we want for an arterial. And that's what we're creating is an arterial for them to go right up to Loop, because anything other than going south on Kegley is going to end up coming through Wildflower. So what do we get? If you don't put gates on our community, we will sit there and have nothing but traffic. And middle of the night, we get people flying through there. And some of them, I've even had Jake brakes come on in the middle of the night, coming down the hill. It just doesn't make sense. I've even seen fuel trucks come off the highway to get down to Kegley to take it to go around. And I've blocked, there's semis coming when Kegley was closed. You couldn't even get to Kegley. And they were down there and they're all the way back up to the top and all waiting in line to come down. And I get in front of a semi. You don't want 2 more blocks and they have to turn around. And some of them did it. We went turn around on the golf course. That's the type of people that we are forced there. They're inconvenienced because 35 is blocked. Well, we're inconvenienced too. We like to have a little bit of peace and quiet in our residence. And that was never designed to be a through road. It is now. And this is going to make it a lot worse unless something is done to control that. Thank you.
Next is Olga Rendon. Rendon.
Hello, my name is Olga Rendon. I live at 109 Palomino Drive. And most of my questions have been answered by my brother with y'all. But I just want to voice that the traffic on 2305 is totally ridiculous. There have been accidents there. There have been deaths there, just as anywhere, I'm sure. But it's going to get worse. I know the middle lane to where our road comes out on, I have to travel that middle lane to turn in. And if there's a car coming on the opposite side, the car that's there will get up so close to you that you cannot even see to turn into the road. So you either just take your chances or you just wait it out. But it's going to get worse. And we see that happening. But I have to vote no, with a strong no.
Next on the list is Jim Vaughn.
Thank you. I'm Jim Vaughn. I live at 4121 Sunflower there in the Wildflower subdivision. A little bit of history. I've built about 50 homes out there since the time that Wildflower opened. Now, when it first opened up, it was the gem of Temple. And what I mean about that is that the city, the mayor, all the officials who were being interviewed by companies to move to Temple, they'd whisk them out to Wildflower, show them the golf course, show them the club, show them the terrain, show them all the nice lots out there they could build on with their staff and people. We even had a slogan, live, work, and play. Well, it's going to be tough living out there. You can still work, but things have changed considerably during these 25 years. I think that the gentleman here made a good presentation and using an old phrase, putting lipstick on a pig. And, we've talked about some of that, and the people from Wildflower have expounded on it. But it seems to me, talking about Wildflower, for example, there's probably 12 or 15 homes that open up onto Wildflower. The concern a minute ago was addressed about you couldn't put a road in there and have homes opening up to the road. So my question is, I suppose, what is the designation of Wildflower Lane? Do we have a addressment of that, please?
It is a neighborhood collector. I've got it on the map for you,
Okay.
sir.
That allows to have homes open, their driveways.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
Well,
And just
sorry.
I'd like to note for folks that have been following our thoroughfare plan and our comprehensive plan, previously we only had collectors, didn't make any distinction. When we went through the 2020 update to the comprehensive plan, gave a lot of thought. We allowed for a neighborhood collector. There's going to be a greater requirement for sidewalks or bike paths or bike lanes, but would allow the drive entrances. But the community collector, which is intended to handle a great amount of traffic, prohibits the residential drive just to eliminate those conflict points.
Right.
So
It
yeah,
seems
to
to
your
me-
question, Wildflower
sorry.
is a neighborhood collector.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a problem there regardless because of all the traffic coming through there and the people having ingress and egress in and out of their property, the driveways. The other problem is, and I saw this back in South Temple when I was building in the cliffs of Canyon Creek, when Stratford didn't go all the way over to Hickory. We would build homes and the mothers would complain that the street didn't go through because they couldn't get their kids to St. Francis. Well, lo and behold, they got the bridge over there and all kind of traffic comes through there. So much that I suppose the city had to put speed bumps there. We would not like to have speed bumps put into Wildflower. That takes away from some of the private sense of your home and your being when you have to negotiate those speed bumps. I guess while I'm on that subject, I'd appreciate maybe you already have driven through Wildflower. There's about 3 golf cart crossings there. And there's a little sign, and sometimes it's bent the other direction so you can't see it. But they need to be addressed with maybe larger signs. The signs currently are too close to the pathway crossing. They need to be moved back a little bit so the driver can absorb kind of what's ahead of it. In addition to that, they need to be marked from curb to curb, and so that they also, that reinforces the crossing into things. So I would think those would be something that need to be done immediately. Now, if you go down Sunflower, down Sunflower to Paintbrush, what happens there, there's a cart path that goes from, I don't know, number 2 or something like that, number 1, where you have to get onto Paintbrush. You have to come down Paintbrush. You have to take a left, then you take a right back over to number 2. That has no marking whatsoever. It has no signage. It has no crossing of things like that. So I would appreciate, I know I'm not a golfer, but I know the golfers would appreciate with all this traffic coming through that they have a little bit of help being recognized that they're playing golf. And this is kind of a golf cart lane and maybe a speed reduction or something as you come through there. Currently, I think it's 30 miles per hour throughout the development. In this vicinity where there's a crossing, that may be considered something to a 20 or 25, particularly as you come down the hill and on the Wildflower and get down towards Kegley. You have a tendency to speed up anyway. It just kind of happens naturally. But there's a lot of problems out there. In some sense, I think we're starting to address this a little bit too late. We're going to have to live through the rest of Kegley construction. 2 or 3 streets going to come on to Kegley. The easiest way for them to go is through Wildflower rather than West Adams. And, Kegley's going to be tied off to the south for years. So what alternative do they have? So something needs to be done and conceived to prevent the wildness that may happen there in Wildflower, because it's going to happen. I've noticed where you've got nice boulevards, this, that, and the other in West Temple, and they came in, and then you had the community streets going to the neighborhoods. We don't have that benefit. If you're going to do anything, you might want to consider getting after that connection from Kegley to the loop as a front runner to get it conceived and get it engineered so it can be built, so it can provide relief from all this stuff that is going to be happening. Because there's hundreds of acres between Kegley and back over towards I guess that's Old Waco Road, where Hogan is going to be coming through. So this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. And so I think what we're requesting is some immediate addressment of where we are, but even more importantly, the future of what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years, because it could certainly turn into a loblolly.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I know. And
Yeah.
I just picked up my cards.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
Chair Marshall, I wanted to add a little bit of detail. The previous council meeting, Mr. Oborn and Mr. Vaughn came and spoke to council. And afterwards, Brian and I reached out to them individually and had a conversation with Mr. Vaughn on the phone. And I have reached out to,
appreciate that.
yes, sir, to the comments about the speeding on Wildflower. I have reached out to the police chief, put that on his radar. So I can't promise when the officers will be there. I'm not in charge of the officers, but I've tried to get their attention. Yes, sir.
Could I ask one question? We talked about these crossings and markings.
Mhm.
Is that a Wildflower cost? It's a public street, I think, or is it the city's expense?
I don't have that answer yet.
That'd be good to find.
Yeah,
out.
no, that's, you gave me an interesting puzzle. Yep.
Check out that thing.
On the golf court crossing? No, not yet. The signage, yeah. Right.
Up next is Ernest Brennick, if you want to
Yep.
make your way to the podium while they hash that out.
Yep. So, Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to start a whole sidebar.
Okay.
We can reach out to the
Yeah.
commission to ask
About the striping.
Golf carts.
Next on the list is Debbie Huey.
Hi, Debbie Huey, 6212 Jupiter. And so I can show you where we live. That property right here. We have 10 acres there. You see all the proposed development completely surrounding us. I understand development. My husband was the director of finance here, and I know it brings in revenue. So I understand that part. The emergency access easement, you said that the city would be responsible for putting that in.
The developer would install it, then once it's in, the city would pay for maintenance as needed.
Okay, so what is the developer, what does he have to put in there as far as is it a paved street?
It would be a paved street. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When 2305 was widened, a lot of the water flow came to and then it flowed over to us, and it goes all the way back. I used to feed with that fishing and let it do so much water.
Mrs. Huey, can I give you a suggestion? That is a wireless microphone. If you want to carry that with you.
I normally don't speak anyways. But anyway.
No, you can, I mean, you can pick that up and
Okay.
take it to the podium. The whole thing, the whole pedestal comes with
Okay.
it. There you go.
So when this was, this is the Pepper Creek drainage that was put in by the city, thank goodness. But we still get this property right here. There's a house that's right here. And originally the developer had proposed a 30-foot easement or requested one through our property. And we said no. Where this is coming from leads him back out onto Jupiter. Y'all talked about Jupiter, and thank y'all very much. These are all estate-sized lots. We're talking about lots for all these, if they're regular single-family homes, 40-foot wide by 120 feet deep. If you look at the size of lots that have been out there we've been there for 32 years. You take this as an emergency access easement. There's a home right here. Originally, the city had considered cutting Jupiter through to Kegley. Thank goodness they moved that over to Hogan. And I don't care if Hogan ever gets built, but I don't want Jupiter built either. But as far as this right here, is that home going to be demolished like it was originally planned?
I don't have the answer. The applicant may.
Okay. Well, I know the applicant's brother lives there.
Mm.
So I don't know if this just came about because we said no as far as an easement through our property.
When they sent in the survey and the first notice was sent out, we sent that to our mapping department. I hate to throw them under the bus. You know, we could have caught it too. The survey did include that little lot where the home is. It wasn't part of the original noticed area. So it was corrected when we sent out the second notice. The applicant contacted me, let me know that we missed that corner. So that was on us.
Okay. So is he proposing to demolish that house and have the emergency access easement, or is that just something that is going to be, because from what I understand, Sundance is not a guarantee, correct?
Well, it would be required when the plat for them to connect to the street projections. The development code requires if there's an existing dead end or stub street at the property line, that the next development has to tie into that to allow the network to continue to grow. But to the question on whether or not they're going to demolish that house, I don't know. I would defer to the applicant. When they come up to respond to questions, they can address that.
Okay. Well, you want to say something, Mike?
Sorry, Ms. Hugh. I just wanted to recommend that once all the public comments are provided, that we do bring the applicant.
There's an electrical easement that runs all the way through the property. I don't know how wide their easement is, and I don't know what the requirements are as far as building around or under easements. The lot sizes, the buffering for the emergency access easement, because it's going to be all around us, and building development is inevitable. Are we going to be, our fence is a 9-strand or a 5-strand barbed wire fence. Is that going to be the only buffering there, is the fence that we have?
You're saying the buffering between your property and any future single-family homes?
And the emergency access easement?
We don't require buffering against roads or against neighboring, only between residential and non-residential is where
Okay.
we require buffering.
Okay, so we're going to have a paved street, basically, as the emergency access easement.
That's correct.
Okay. And right next to that place, pardon? So we're going to have an emergency access easement running right beside our property.
That's correct.
Okay. So when you put that road in there, the flow over is going to go back over onto our property even greater. And the applicant also bought this property here. This property floods. The front yard will be standing in water as it flows off. And I don't know if it's just from the drainage through the years or whatever. This floods. So when all this is covered up and all this is built up, and we have a paved road here with our fence being the buffer for emergency access. I mean, come on, in all reality, that gate's going to be open. And there is no way, and I'm not being rude to you, Jason, you've
I
been
understand.
great to deal with. This is really
Yep.
depressing. There is no way 2 cars can go down Jupiter at the same time. You either pull off in my neighbor's yards over there. They pull off in their yards and tear up their front yards, or you pull over to the Lewis's property that has a bar ditch there, or some grass on the outside of their fence. When you make that an emergency access easement, whether it's used or never used, the consideration is there for it to be used. So you got that paved road there. And I don't know if he's going to be required to make it 2-lane or 4-lane.
That's a local street. That'd be a 2-lane.
A 2-lane. So you're going to have a 2-lane that's wide enough to carry supposedly 2, an emergency vehicle or 2. And you're going to have people trying to leave all of his proposed building here, and the residents of Jupiter, us included, which is a dead end street, trying to get out on Jupiter as well. Emergency vehicles coming down our road that, I'm telling you, you can't even pass if there's a garbage truck on the road. Jupiter's not cut out for any extra traffic. And until there's so many what ifs on the proposal now, what if he cuts through on Sundance? What if he cuts through on these people's property? What is he going to build here? Is he really going to do office buildings, or is he going to do duplexes, because duplexes are allowed instead of office buildings? That happened on Old Waco Road, a small subdivision that was supposed to have been office buildings. And there are duplexes built, and Sam and I are the ones that noticed that they had no driveways, no cuts for driveways. So we came to the planning department and told them about that. They went back in and made them make cuts for the driveways. Do people just not want a yard anymore? I mean, I'm lost here. I love yard work. But a 40-foot wide property and you put a house on it. I don't know if anybody's driven towards Troy lately. We just did the other day, right off the interstate. We were gonna, going to Troy. There's houses. You look over to the right, nothing but rooftops, all the same patterns, all the same colors, no imagination. I know you're laughing.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but we should
That's
pass the
fine.
3 minutes.
It's frustrating to see y'all with so many questions, with no answers, so many what ifs, so many gray areas, and for us to have property that's sitting right next to it that leaves us with even more what ifs. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huey. Next on the list, we have Mr. Greg Rhodes. Not to be silly, but he is a post chairman of the P and Z Commission. We have post chairman, Mr. Greg Rhodes.
There's two of us actually here. So Greg Rhodes,
Derek,
2054 South Kegley and 1514 South Kegley. So I'm going to keep it brief. And because a lot of the issues have been brought up already, but mainly the first one is Kegley construction. Phase 1 and 2 are complete. Those took 3.5 years to do. Phase 3 and 4, what you said earlier when you checked with them, I doubt that they're going to start. And I mean, we're still a good 2 or 3 years out from that. And Kegley is just being backed up majorly with 18-wheelers and such because the GPS is, redirecting them to that location. And a lot of you, probably one of the things that hadn't been brought up that's happening, if you look or you notice, if you're anywhere between the Loop and Midway, even almost into Belton to 6th Street, there, all cities have it. And for some reason we have it and it's a blockage and nobody knows why. Sometimes there's a wreck. Sometimes it just blocks in that area. And then that's when the GPSs kick off the Waze and stuff like that to kick them down to Kegley or through Wildflower or Sunflower. So a lot of that is what's happening because for some unknown reason, 35 is backing up constantly, at least 3 or 4 times a week between the Loop and Midway. And then people don't, and if you ever are in that area, look down Charter Oak, which is right behind next to Midway, you'll see 50 to 60 cars. If you're a city person, if you live here, that person is not from here because they're going to go through that stop sign. And it's just a constant backup. So with all that being said, I vote no for this also at this point, because I get it that, growth is going to happen, but we've got to, when I was in your seat, Derek, years ago, that's the issue is unfortunately, we're not keeping up with the roads and what's going on with the road construction in Temple. And we've been behind the gun way before we started approving Walmart on Adams or anything of that nature. We've been way behind. And so I actually own, the second property I own is that Hogan Road come through right there. That's a house that my father lives in. So of course, for the record, I'll be objecting that one, but that's a different day. And so, but the 2 collectors coming into Kegley, it's just a problem now. And if the road gets done, maybe not. But right now it is a huge, I live about 1.5 miles back off Midway, and several times a week, you'll see the cars backed up all the way to my house. And so it's just a huge problem. That's it. Thanks.
Great. Mrs. Tyrock?
I'd like you to stand up. Please stand up. You've been sitting too long.
I can appreciate
That's
that.
a good stretch.
Good for the back.
Yeah. She's lining us up to take shots.
Hello, I'm Martha Tyrock. I live at 719 Paintbrush in Wildflower. And I'm a proud resident. I live in Temple. Temple is a great city. I want each of you to know I've sat in those seats. I've left as chairman. I went to city council for almost 11 years and was mayor pro tem. I understand the job y'all are doing. When on P&Z, we went on field trips, site visits.
So of course, when this came up, I went on my little old site visit with my mud boots on. I'm not against this development, but I am the way it's being done. It's backwards. We need to do the roads first for the safety. Also, I would like to say, I got this notice from Mike Pelkington, who's our city council member out there. He says, "Hi, I just want you to know, you can tell the neighbors I got Wildflower on the list to do a traffic study." So there's going to be a traffic study done. Mike said, checking to see how long it will be until the turnaround, because it is very important, the traffic. The safety is another thing. We have safety. We have a traffic issue, major. The other thing is the flooding. On Paintbrush, when you look across going west, and if it's raining, the creek through there floods onto the golf course on the hole between 2 and 3. It is like a river. The other thing I want to say is I don't want to do this backwards. It took almost 2.5 years to get that little part of part 2. The bids for Kegley have not even gone out. They haven't even been really put together. So that's the other thing, the length of time it's going to be. You know, I'm not against development, but the way this is being done is incorrect. Thank you very much. And thank y'all
you,
for
Mrs.
standing
Tyrell.
up.
Appreciate the stretch. Mr. Martin, Derek Martin.
Is there any way we can hear from the developer first?
Sure.
To the chair of the developer, it's not my place to direct them.
I was gonna say before you.
From everything the citizens have to say, and then I'd like to talk about that.
Okay, there is 2 more on the list behind you. Let me call them first, and then we'll ask the developer to come on. I'm sorry, Cheryl. I don't want to mispronounce your last name. Fosnot. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Fosnot. I live at 6205 Hidden Valley Drive, and that is the very end of Sundance. And I live where the white line, the right end of the white line, the top of the red dot is my house. And so if this street opens up into Sundance, that street's the shortest street to get into phase 2. So I'm thinking they're probably not going to build this big, long, yellow street when they can build that little white street and go in with their concrete trucks and their dump trucks and their work trucks. And this is a street. It's not a neighborhood. It is one street. There's no streets off of it except for my little street, which is Hidden Valley. And there's 2 houses, mine and one next door. And so there's no way out of there except going down Sundance. When you go down Sundance, you run into Adams. There is no getting off of Adams onto or off of Adams on Sundance at certain times of the day. I mean, you cannot, there's no way you can turn left to go towards Walmart. Most people like me, we go right and turn into the AutoZone and then go back and go left and get, if we have to go left. And so there's just too much traffic to put on one little street. Please put an emergency gate on that. Please. It's just a little street, and there's little kids that play, there's basketball courts, goals in the street. And also I wanted to ask about, during Snowmageddon, the city didn't have enough power to power the people we had 3 years ago. Is there enough power grid to handle this much more building in our city? Is there? And also, I don't know if y'all have been to the lakes this summer or not, but is there enough water to handle this many more houses, this many more people? I mean, are we taxing our natural resources out? And also, this is Pepper Creek Trail. I don't know if y'all have been down the other end of Pepper Creek Trail. There's little deer, little birds, little squirrels. There's little foxes, little raccoons, little possums, little stuff that when you start building is coming into the neighborhoods that are already there. So there's wildlife also to consider. So anyway, I'm a hard no on this, and that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Josh Chomp? Did he leave earlier? Oh, thank you. That leaves Derek left on the list. Would anybody else like to come talk that did not sign up? Seeing none, I guess if we can ask the developer to come discuss.
Good evening. My name is Lena Shittay. I'm with Belton Engineering. I'm the civil engineer on the project, and the developer is with COVID. So I'll do my best speaking on this project. We've been working on this project with the city for about 2 years. It's a challenging site to develop from an access standpoint. We do have a major drainage channel that crosses the site east to west. We also have Pepper Creek, and we've been through so many meetings to come up with this layout. I do want to say that we had early on, we had a traffic engineer on board, and we do have the study that he did. And 2 access point is plenty enough, and that is from their findings for the traffic generated from this development. However, it was requested based on fire fire requirements and for fire safety to have the additional access points to be used as an emergency. And if we are building that emergency access to Jupiter, reality is will ever be used. I mean, it has to be realistically, it has to be a catastrophe for that to ever be used. And I do want to mention that we are also working with a developer that is interested in developing the Brennick Tract, and we are working with them to make sure that Tanglehead is extended all the way from Old Waco to Kegley. And we did hear from everybody how critical and how congested Adam is, and we agree with that. And Tanglehead is going to provide a relief to that. And unless development happens, road improvements and CIP projects will not be triggered. We're very proud to be in Temple, and we love attracting commercial and retail, and we love that the city is growing. Well, our employees need a place to live. Our people need a place to go, and this tract right here is one of a great spots to have such lots in high density. I understand that Kegley is not completed, but please be aware, even when this gets approved, it does take at least 18 months to 2 years to have the first 75 lots ready to build houses on. So we still have time. The platting process, we still have to go through preliminary plat, final plat. We still have to go through construction phase. So it's not going to be built all at once. It will be built in phases, and most likely the phase 1 of residential will be only 75 to 100 lots. So until that is ready to distribute to home builders, that's going to be at minimum 18 months. to 2 years, which that will give time for Kegley to be built. As far as drainage, we will address all drainage during planting. That will be worked through detention ponds, channels, underground storm sewer, whatever has to be done to assure that the runoff does not exceed that existing condition. And besides that, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Derek?
Thank you all very much. Derek Martin, 2830 South Kegley Road. One, I appreciate y'all for y'all's time y'all do, to the developer for tabling beforehand, switching their development around, trying to do as much as they can. Jason, City of Temple, way to go. Awesome job keeping us up and up to date, in the loop and everything. Way to go. Great job. Okay, so obviously I was here at the last meeting before it was tabled. I gave all of my reasons why I did not feel like this development should go through. Briefly, I will go ahead and say that between myself, the Schneiders, and Von der Hoya, we own the majority of the property all around this area. All of us are wanting to build nice single-family one homes, such as the development of Wildflower. It's an excellent neighborhood. At what point, I feel like at what point do we as a city want to cut back and say, hey, look, you know, do we need single-family one housing at all anymore for business people, doctors, whoever it might be? Or are we just going to go single-family 2, single-family 3 from here on out and just look like Killeen? Sorry. So that's where we're at right there. My feeling on that is that we need an area that will provide single-family one housing. It is inevitable that this area, the whole area, will be developed one day, right? So why not get all the developers together and try to make a nicer, not a nicer, excuse me, the single family one parameters versus single family 2, townhomes, multifamily, all the density that we are dealing with. Second, I'm going to go to the traffic analysis. Again, this was brought up the last time. I do not believe, I know the last study with TxDOT was 2020. We did not have any of the multifamily developments that have even been built or passed at that point. I feel like there is an exponential rate that every time the city continues to pass these multifamily developments, the density grows and snowballs on top of each other. It's not like we just have one here, one here, one here. It develops, it snowballs, and so the traffic is going to get worse and worse. I do not believe that the traffic study that y'all are looking at here correctly objectifies the traffic that Kegley Road has, Adams has. As everyone has already said, the construction of Kegley, if there is a wreck on 35, Kegley gets backed up. What are we going to do when Kegley continues to get backed up and a catastrophe happens and Kegley is completely backed up, and then all of a sudden you have to use Jupiter for its emergency entrance? However, Jupiter is only 14 feet 5 inches wide. My truck takes up nearly 75% of that road. How are you going to get a fire truck and an ambulance together down there? It doesn't make sense. But regardless, moving on, I know time is of the essence. I'd like to go back to, do you mind bringing up, I believe it's an aerial of the entire property, not just this property, the Kegley Road, Adams. It was.
Oh, the Google Earth.
Google, please.
There you go.
Yes, right there.
There you go. Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so right now, one of the big things dealing with this development is the assumption that Tanglefoot will be developed and that Hogan Road will be developed. In my opinion, it's nothing more than just something on a piece of paper. There is nothing to say that those two roads are going to be developed whatsoever. I don't know much about Tanglefoot because I have no property up there. However, I do know about Hogan right here, and I'm going to restate this again, that if I own this property and the Schneiders own this property, not this one, excuse me, this is Miss Gloria Jackson's property right here. From what I understand, she will not sell whatsoever. You want Hogan Road to come through here like this. In order to do that, the city of Temple is going to have to enact eminent domain right here. Otherwise, why would the city not just make an agreement with the Schneiders and myself and make Hogan one straight road straight down? That makes more sense. Less costly for everyone involved. All of a sudden, this development doesn't have Hogan Road, does not have the access. We don't know about the access up here. The whole thing about this is like Mrs. Tyrock said, this is backwards. There is no reason to go ahead and approve the zoning for multifamily, for townhouses, for single family too, for all of this density. There's absolutely zero reason to pass that with all of the unknowns. Period. There are too many unknowns. That's my biggest point. I don't see how y'all can do that. If they want to start off by developing the front areas of Kegley with your entrance right here with the townhouse and your entrance right here, coming here for your single family over here, that's a different subject. But to go ahead and completely zone this how they want with 20-something exceptions or conditions, it's backwards. I ask that y'all look at this in the totality of the situation. Look at everyone here who has opposed this. There's only one person here that's for it. That's the developer. And there are too many unknowns, too many ifs, what ifs, whatever that can happen. Let's not give them carte blanche to do whatever they can, and it's with conditions, and let's do it systematically and see the road through and then look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek.
Chair Marshall, can I make a slight response? It's kind of for Mr. Martin, but for y'all as well.
So let's let the developer speak first, Jason. Is that
Yeah, go
okay?
ahead.
I just want to say that we do have 3 access points to this development, and those are those are known to us. We do have two improved access points proposed on Kegley. We do have the emergency access to Sundance. The developer through the Brennick Tract is needing for this to go through in order for them to also connect to Tanglehead and connect Tanglehead all the way to Old Waco. If Kegley is to ever get blocked, we do have Old Waco also as an access. This is going to be developed in phases, but unless we start somewhere, this will always have problems. Problems that are not going to just solve itself without us doing something towards that. And what we're proposing, we do have 3 access points that is going to give us up to 300 units to develop, and we'll continue to work with the Brennicks to extend Tanglehead all the way to Old Waco. But we just have to take the first step towards that. Thank you.
If I might say something just from the, gallery, it's good that they have 3 accesses, but those 3 accesses convolute, multiply, wildfire becoming a tsunami. So it's good they have their points to Kegley, but it impacts even more importantly, what's in wildfire. Well, I think that's what Jared was referring to a moment ago, is find a solution to get a which are mostly developed. So I would hope that y'all take that into consideration, that their problem may be solved, so our duty gets worse.
To the thoroughfare plan question, for commissioners and, any member of the public that would love to get into the weeds on thoroughfare planning, I'm available. If, let's say that we weren't talking about this rezoning right now, and Mr. Martin had brought a project in, we would evaluate his project with this same thoroughfare map. So there's a north-south collector, there's an east-west collector that would be future Hogan. This is not even a 30,000 foot, it's a 100,000 foot view. It's back in the Army, we called this the fat finger line. You put your fat finger on the map and you drag it across. I want to go there. Frequently, since we adopted the comp plan, we've amended the thoroughfare plan as development comes in, says, I can make that connection, but not the way you drew it. It may not meet the letter of the plan, but it meets the intent. Can I have a connection between Old Waco, in this case, Kegley? And if, development came in that showed a different way of making Hogan possible, and that development would dedicate that right away, we would evaluate that. I'm not going to stand here and say, yes, I'm going to approve Mr. Martin's plan. I'm going to say, I'm going to evaluate you the same as I would any other development. We're open to working with the development community to make the traffic flow better, to implement our plans. We don't pretend that this is the final answer. This is a starting point. And you can see, back to this rezoning, does their thoroughfare alignment match ours down to the centimeter? No. Do we feel that it matches the intent of what that thoroughfare plan wants to accomplish? Yes.
Does not address anything about Wildflower. It's gonna go from Old Waco to the loop.
Right.
Otherwise,
Okay.
we have nothing.
I'm sorry, Kyle. Yeah.
Sir, we can't have this from the peanut gallery because we are recording. We need you to come up to the mic if you're going to speak, and you do need to be recognized by the chair.
I do think your sentiments are just kind of reiterating what's been already discussed tonight. If that's okay, if I know it's already 8 o'clock and it's late for everybody. I thank you for your understanding though. We understand that the gallery's concern of not necessarily just it providing the access to the development, but what does it do subsequent outside the development that has the impact? Yes, sir. We fully grasp the community's outspeak on that.
Chair, I'd like to know, there's no one online. We're the
Okay.
only ones on the Zoom tonight. So there's no other members of the public trying to speak through the Zoom platform.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. Without objection from the gallery, I will close the public hearing at this point. Now that the public hearing is closed, commissioners, do y'all have any further questions?
For me?
Yeah, yes, I think, can y'all hear her now? Yeah.
Right now?
So just being mindful of the road infrastructure and the process in which the infrastructure is completed prior to developing with potentially insufficient infrastructure in place is the statement. And I agree. I'm pro development. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
our city is going to be growing exponentially from what we have been. I mean, I've been here my entire 34-year life, and in the last 5 years, it's grown more than the previous 30. So, and it's only going to grow faster. But I do think we need to be diligent, and I do think we need to have forethought in the way that we're doing it. And while I do like this idea of this development, I'll be honest with this panel. I'm not 100% certain we have the ability in place to sufficient.
I would agree.
So, if there aren't any other comments or questions from the panel, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we do not approve FY 24-3-ZC as recommended by staff to city council.
Second.
I have a motion for disapproval, Commissioner Weaver, and a second by Commissioner Carney. May we have a vote, please?
We have a discussion a little bit, or is that too late?
Oh, I don't
I'm just
know.
wondering if,
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering if maybe we could table it to give time for them to work on a updated traffic study for this project. Because as you said, we are in favor of development. We just want to be sure that it's going to be prudent for the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think my motion would stay. I think it's a matter of Kegley's not going to be done for the next generation probably. So I would stay with my current motion.
And I would agree with that because it's nothing really with the development. It's just Kegley. I don't personally think Kegley can support it.
Here's, Clint, my question is, would you be in favor for it if it was all SF1?
Absolutely, 100%. But I don't think the developer would be open to a all SF1. Can you come to the mic? I'm sorry.
I guess the formal question is is the developer willing to entertain all SF1?
Well, that I would have to check with him, but what I'm asking is that could we with this approve the single family portion of it only?
I don't know the way that it's read in and everything, Kyle. I'm not sure that we could do that.
I guess, Kyle, could we not just act on the motion that's been granted, then them come back with another
Propose a
solution?
different proposal.
Because I mean, at this point, we're not going to resolve that tonight, I don't believe.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you're just a recommendation. But if city council were to then disapprove it, it would have to be 6 months before it could come back. Prior to city council, they could change their thing and we would have to renotice and come back their development.
Let me ask the question this way, Kyle. If we tabled it as recommended, could you come back with a proposal that would only include the single family? And then the timeline, would that be the next meeting?
Could you do it by next meeting, do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, we could do it by next meeting.
So I guess in my mind, I can adjust my motion.
You're not having any
If
with
she
me.
gets one more
This is-
time, I would
yeah.
like another time also.
Yeah.
Was it time or was it a question asked to the
It was a
developer in our
question
in our-
asked to the
our
applicant.
discussion?
Can I clarify? So she represents the applicant. So she is actually not subject to the
time,
the public,
Yeah.
the opening of the public hearing. So it's not the same. So wanted to clarify.
So I can't come up to the microphone, is that correct?
The public hearing is
No.
closed.
I got 10 seconds.
I know what you're gonna say too. I think we all do, Derek, honestly. I don't want to open up the
And he
public
already
hearing.
said that he cannot do this project. He said this.
So we're allowing him to still talk? What's the decision of the chair?
We are not going to open the public hearing again.
Okay.
There was discussion in the previous hearing for this of him not wanting to do all single family one. That was discussed, that was stated by the applicant. And I believe that's all that was intended to be brought up. Yep.
I don't think I was here for that meeting, so.
Yeah. All right.
Before we if it's
I-
possible, instead of disapproval and take 6 months.
I will say this, since this panel right here is just a recommendation to council to make that decision, if y'all want to change your proposal, but I know the city's going to have to re-advertise and repost, and staff, I'm sorry for adding more work to you guys. But as it sits right now, I genuinely think that this denial vote is going to go through. I personally think the denial vote should go through to council. And so should y'all choose to change, then y'all obviously have that right to do so. It'll just go straight to council's meeting by February 2nd. Was it
February
first or
1st.
second? February
1st.
So that's my personal opinion. If a motion wants to be made to table and for it to come back to us at our next meeting, we can absolutely do that. But I'll let the commission decide what to amend or keep the same motion. Yeah. Yeah.
There's some confusion, so.
Sure.
So the question back to the developer, if we tabled it, could you come back by the next meeting to discuss a smaller portion of just the single family 2? Or the single family 1, I'm sorry?
Yeah, SF2, yeah, SF2, yeah.
SF1.
It's currently SF2.
Yeah, I'm going to stay with my original motion, I think at this point, because
I
then the
think y'all
city
can come-
council can make the decision. That's what they get paid the bucks for, and we're volunteers. So
Mhm.
I'm going to stay with my motion and encourage you to stay with your
I'm
second.
going to stay with my second.
I was going to say, I think as the applicant, I do believe you can
Work through that with
work through
city
that.
staff. That's
Right.
what they're
I
there
do
for.
believe that there's time there between now and the 1st for y'all to amend your proposal to council.
Table it, whatever y'all want to do.
Whatever
Yep.
they- Okay. So I have a motion by Commissioner Weaver for disapproval and a second by Commissioner Carney. And I think the clarification is that we
Yes.
vote aye to be in favor of the disapproval.
Right, you
Yeah.
are voting on the motion. So the motion is to recommend disapproval of this item to council. If you agree with disapproving, say aye. If you disagree, say nay.
Thank you, Kyle. Kathy, may we have a vote,
Yes,
please?
Commissioner Morales,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Commissioner Jurassic,
Aye.
Commissioner Weaver,
Aye.
Commissioner Carney,
Aye.
Chair Marshall.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
Thank you, Kathy. And with no further business, we will conclude the meeting at 8:14 PM. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
Double time for overtime?
Yeah. I want double pay for tonight, Kathy.